Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown. And I'm doing a public live very quickly today because yesterday a lovely man named Richard said, "Hey, Pat, you have to see this." And he linked me to Unsolved No More, the YouTube channel of Ken Mains, and said, "You got to check this out." And I did. And it was interesting. I'm going to play the clip in a minute. Uh, Normally, I don't respond to stuff like this, but he said something that I thought was worth responding to for the purposes of helping people understand reality. And I've always been about reality. So that's why I'm here. That's why I opened this up to a public live. My lives are usually patron only. And if you'd like to join Patreon and come to my regular lives, click on the link below. And if you don't want to do that, please do like and subscribe. Click that little bell so you get my notifications, and go to the search engine at YouTube and put in profiler Pat Brown in any case you're interested in. You might find I've already done it, or you can just scroll through my playlist and I've got hundreds of videos on different cases. Check them out. All right. Thank you for everybody who is here in the chat room. I've said hello to a lot of you, but I can't keep going. I want to get to what I want to talk about. And what I want to talk about is the truth about solving cold cases. Everybody is fascinated with cold cases. They're like, oh my God, we have to solve this case. And I have a lot of issues with people's thinking on this, heartfelt thinking, but not necessarily accurate thinking. So I'm going to get into this, but I have to start with what Ken Mains said. And by the way, Ken Mains' channel was hacked, and his channel was removed from YouTube for some reason. It was hacked, and at least that's what he claims, and I don't have any reason to disbelieve him. And he got the channel back. And people had said to me, Pat, are you happy Ken Mains, Ken Shane's, unedited, live, on Ken Mains' channel was taken off of YouTube? And I'm like, no, I always recommend Ken Mains' channel. Why do I do this? And I recommended Ken Mains' channel a day before he came out and said what he did. Because he's one of the few people who, when he discusses cases, he explains his analyses of that case. He goes through all the different pieces of evidence and explains why he comes to his conclusions. As I always point out, I don't always agree with his conclusions. Neither would he always agree with mine. But I like people to have more than one viewpoint on things so they can see, oh, there's two different viewpoints on this case. What have they agreed upon? What do they disagree upon? What can I learn from this? You know, there's not only one person in the universe who can analyze a case. I'm not that person, and he's not that person. So why can't we have a number of people who have skills to do such things and then let people learn from that? And so just before he put out this video, I recommended his channel. And just to be clear, I will continue recommending his channel for the purposes of people getting a different viewpoint on certain cases and the analysis of those cases. I don't have to like the guy, which I'm having a hard time doing right now, but I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I want to mention this guy. This guy was very influential to me in early years. He wrote a book called Criminal Profiling. His name is Brent Turvey. He is an independent criminal profiler. He does not like me. He said terrible things about me, and I still recommend his book to this day. As a matter of fact, I was going to write a whole book on criminal profiling, but I kind of thought he did a better job than I would ever do. So I constantly recommend this book. So, and I still do. I don't have to be your best bud to recommend something you do, because there's a lot of people in the world who may not be my best friend. Like Michael Jackson, I might not let my son sleep over at his house, but darn can that guy entertain, write great music, sing great music, dance. He was one of the best. I wouldn't let him around my kids. I think he has some major issues. I did a video on that, so you can go check that out. There's a lot of people who are famous I don't like, but they're great actors, actresses. So, you know, everybody has abilities. It doesn't mean that you necessarily want to be BFFs with them. So I don't care if he wants to be a BFF with me, but I wish he would at least respect. All right. So what did he say? I'm going to play a clip, which I think I've accomplished because this is new. They have a new thing on StreamYard, which is that's what I use to do these shows. Let's see if it works. Let's see if this clip works.
You have to be careful again about not going to Crazy Town. Listen, I visited Crazy Town. Okay, I've never taken up residency there. Okay, but I've been there, and I've seen the inhabitants. And I've seen the villages that have been created in Crazy Town. And the one thing that's in common with everybody that lives in Crazy Town is the internet, believe it or not. You know, even so-called professionals, I guess. There's this female, quote-unquote, criminal profiler who, she's not credible. But people think that she is for whatever reason. Listen, people gravitate to people for various reasons. Hey, she reminds me of my grandmother, my crazy grandmother, whatever it is. But when you talk to true professionals, you can weed out who's credible and who isn't. What she once told me, and this was this is right when I really started getting into the field, that cold cases were a waste of time. Yeah. I was like, really? And I screenshotted that because it bugged me. Because at the time, I thought she was a professional. You know, she had been on TV, a bunch of television appearances. And I realized just by that statement, she wasn't. You know, she wasn't credible. She's crazy. Why would you say that? So it just goes to show you, number one, just because someone's on TV doesn't mean they're credible. Just because they wrote a book doesn't mean they're credible. Well, both of those things apply to me. I've been on TV a bunch, and I've written a bunch of books. Right? Because of that, it doesn't mean I'm credible and you should believe everything I say. But maybe look into their past, their background, what they've done in life, their resume, cases they've worked. And if you really just sit and listen to somebody talk for about 15 minutes, you can get a good grasp on whether they're believable or they're credible. These amateur detectives, some of which have gained like internet fame, that's never done anything other than work at a 7-Eleven.
Okay. Oh my goodness. All right. Woo. All right. Woo. Crazy grandma. Should I say washed up middle-aged tattooed dude? I mean, that is really tacky. Don't say that. If you have an issue with my credibility, I wish you would lay it out on the line. But the reason I really want to do this is the comment he made that I said, let's see, the quote is here, cold cases were a waste of time. All right. That's what this show is really about. But I will have to go back a little bit just to clarify some things, because first of all, he's told me don't believe anything I say because I'm a crazy grandma and I'm not credible. All right. And by the way, don't go through, oh, Pat, you don't need to defend yourself. Don't go there. I mean, I don't need to defend myself, but sometimes I need to explain things because people do need to understand how things are. So, all right. One of his claims, and he says this, is that look at their background. All right. do I have a background? Because he's claiming, I think he went on to the 7-Eleven thing. He wasn't actually attributing this, that I'm one of those YouTube channels that, wants to analyze cases and they never worked at anything but 7-Eleven. There's some truth in that. But he's intimating that I don't have any background. I've just been a TV lady. Actually, the FBI said the same words, TV lady, wrote some books. I did some television stuff. Okay, I did some 3,000 appearances as television stuff, 1.5 decades. And I've done a lot of documentary work as well as news work. The Mysterious Death of Cleopatra. I did 4 seasons, I believe, of iDetective. I mean, I've done a lot of stuff. But I will agree with him on certain things that they don't really vet very well. So they didn't vet me very well, and they didn't vet him either. Okay. They're looking for whatever works. So I agree with him on that. He says, okay, I wrote some books. Well, okay, I wrote some books too. I wrote 8. 5 of them were published by legitimate publishers. And the main book that got me a lot of acclaim, shall we say, The Profiler, My Life Hunting Serial Killers and Psychopaths, which is a terrible name, which they gave it, which I did not. Okay. This was published by Hyperion, which is HarperCollins. I have a lot of bad reviews. He has a lot of bad reviews. Hey, that's the way things work. All right. My book was about unsolved cases. You think? I mean, it's hard. He's like, oh, Pat doesn't believe in working on unsolved cases. But my whole book's about unsolved cases because the man's never read my damn book. And he does not understand who I am or where I come from. Okay, so let me just do my 2-minute CV or something like that. And then I'll give his CV, just so you can understand when you try to kill that baby in that bathwater, maybe you shouldn't do that because we're all sort of on the same, we want the same things. And I agree with a lot of things he says. And I'm going to go there about the cold case issues. But I want to just establish who we are before I go on, because he says I'm not credible. All right. I did not get into criminal profiling until my 30s. In my 30s, I had homeschooled my children all the way through, my 3 children, and I became fascinated with criminal profiling. I read 400 books, and I do not take this lightly. When people say you can't school yourself, I read 400 books, and that covered crime scene analysis, psychopathology, forensics, criminal profiling, everything you can possibly imagine, everything that existed. I think I read. And 400 books. I'm not saying I read a chapter. I read the entire bloody book, and then I put notes on it. And when it said, oh, this person wrote this book, I'm like, oh, and I went to Amazon, spent a fortune educating myself. I also went to seminars for detectives. So I probably went to more seminars for detectives than any detective ever went to, because detectives who work cases never get trained. They don't go to detective school, which is one thing I'm pushing for. And they don't get to go to very many seminars. And when they do, they're like, hey, how you doing? Drinking beer. Oh, I learned about cell phones. Okay. I've also taught those seminars, by the way. I have taught police seminars, North Carolina, Montana, Wisconsin. I have been there and was hired to teach police seminars. So to say that I have no training in the field is ridiculous. But so I did all that. And then I went on to get a master's degree in criminal justice, which was pretty much, I have to say, quite worthless at the time I got it. Sometimes when I came into the course, the professor would go, oh, you're criminal profiler Pat Brown, because I was already in the field. And he was like, oh, what do I do with you? And I wasn't allowed to, the funny thing was when I wrote my papers, I wasn't allowed to quote myself. So I had to ignore anything I ever wrote about anything and only quote other people. So it was an interesting experience. I got my master's degree in criminal justice from Boston University. And it's true, I never took a criminal profiling course per se. Never did that. You know why? This is a picture of me at Excelsior College. I was invited as a professor. I was a professor at Excelsior College. I developed the first criminal profiling program in the entire country. It was a great program until they destroyed it because they just wanted to make money. Great criminal profiling program. I worked so hard on it, I got chump change for it. The first criminal profiling certificate program in the country. I don't have a certificate from the program because I developed the program and I was the professor of the program. So I can't even put the diploma on my wall. All right. So those are the things I did. I also worked pro bono for many, many police agencies across the country. Pro bono. Do you know why I work pro bono? Because police agencies will not pay anybody from the outside. They don't even like people from the outside, but somehow I managed sometimes to get on the inside. I would pay my own money pro bono to all the families, to the police departments, pay my own money to fly to location, rent a car, rent a hotel, work for a week for no money on cold cases. I was invested. I even started an organization called Citizens for Case Closure, and it flopped. I could not get people to support it, and I kind of suck as a manager of those things. I wasn't very good at it. But that flopped, and it was frustrating to me because I really wanted to bring people together to have an oversight issue for cold cases. I was totally believing what he believed, and then I worked these cold cases, and I wrote a book. Misrepresented by the publishers. This was actually supposed to be called a woman's, I forgot what it called it, a woman's fight for justice. They didn't like that. So they wanted a bloody knife and, my life hunting serial killers and psychopaths, which was kind of ridiculous. But that's what they thought would sell. The entire book, I'm going to let you know, Ken Mains, is about unsolved cases. All the unsolved cases I worked. Did I solve those cases? Some of those cases I solved. But solving them does not mean they're going to prosecution, because part of the problem is you come in too late to get evidence enough to go to prosecution. And I'm going to get into why that is the big issue. All right, so do I have a background? I spent 10 years working in an emergency room before I started studying criminal profiling. 10 years in an emergency room. I worked police cases, I worked rape cases, I worked psychiatric cases, I saw so much stabbings, shootings. I was an interpreter, but I watched. I was like a fly on the wall. I got to watch what everybody said. I saw psychopaths lying. I saw girls who said they were raped who were lying about being raped. I mean, I saw all kinds of incredible things. 10 years, it was a great experience. I learned that was an on-the-job experience. It was fabulous. And I learned all that. And then I studied all those books along the way, took my seminars, eventually became what I called a profiler. Did I name myself a profiler? Yes, I did, because there's no absolute rule on who can be a profiler or not. I started my own agency. I did my work. I worked pro bono, went broke, but I loved the work I did. And at a certain point I said, this is not work. This is not helping. Because working cold cases does not exactly make a difference, because they're too cold and it's too late. That's why I said it's not worth it. But that's not because I don't have a heart for it. It's because I understand reality. I'm going to get into more of the reality of that. But I just want to present who I am. I've never lied about who I am. I have a master's degree in criminal justice from Boston University. I developed the first criminal profiling program in the country. But I was never with law enforcement, and that is true. If you don't like that, that's your business. You don't have to like it. All right. So Ken. All right, let's talk about Ken, his background. Now, to be fair, I examined it because I think it's only fair to, he said, treat everyone with respect until it is time not to. Okay, Ken. All right, he said this. He said, this is what I hold a Bachelor of Science degree, BS, in criminal justice, which is pretty much BS, from Lock Haven University. Okay, my master's was BS too. I swear to God, I read like 9 books during my master's. I read 400 books before my master's, 9 during my master's. I thought it was a joke. $30,000 later, I got my degree from Boston University. I thought it was like the stupidest degree I've ever gotten. And it's not his fault that his BS or whatever it is sucks, and my master's sucks. But criminal justice programs in general suck. That's There's a lot of serial killers who go into criminal justice. They're fascinated by it. Koberger, criminal justice. They find it fascinating because it basically talks about criminals and a bunch of nonsense, and it doesn't really solve crimes, because solving crimes is about understanding logic. But anyway, let's go on. All right. He got his criminal justice from Lock Haven University and have taken master's level courses in forensic criminology with an emphasis on criminal profiling. He did not get a master's degree. He took some courses. Now, it's not, I don't have a problem with him taking some courses. But if I just said I took some courses, he would say, well, she didn't even get a master's degree. I did get a master's degree. You didn't. But I don't care. The problem is that you make that an issue. But when it's you, it doesn't matter. When it's me, I guess it matters. All right. I hold professional memberships in the American Academy of Forensic Sciences, the Mid-Atlantic Cold Case Homicide Investigators. It helps if you've been in law enforcement. Now, has he been in law enforcement? Yes. Let me explain his time in law enforcement. Okay, that's not what I wanted. Where did my, okay, hold on. Oh, there. No, it doesn't. It's not there. Okay, I'm going to explain it to you. Yes, I have problems with my clicking on pictures. He was a police patrol officer for 8 years. 8 years. In a quite small location. Now, it's interesting. He only worked for 8 years with the police department, and then he left he had a whole bunch of issues with the police department. I don't know whether the issues were legitimate or the police department didn't like him. So, but they split company. He worked for 8 years as a patrol officer. He calls himself Detective Ken Maines. In reality, during the entire time he was with law enforcement, he never actually achieved the actual detective. He did not work for, how can I put this? And it's not, I'm not saying he didn't do investigating, so I'm not trying to put him down for that. My daughter is a detective. She worked as a patrol officer like he did for many years. Then she ended up, she ended up in the child abuse unit. She became a detective of child abuse, then a detective of sex crimes. Then she became a homicide detective, and then she's rolling out. She's at the end of 20 years now. She's on the 19th year. She's like, she went to domestic, and she's like, she's still a detective. She's been a detective for over a decade. A full-fledged detective working in the units that have those particular people, working every single case. That is not what he did. All right. He has never worked in a unit, as far as I can find from his own words, of that. Okay. He's working what is called, let me pull it up here. It is called, okay, hold on a second. I wrote it down and I've lost my spot. Okay. I want to get it right. TDY, temporary duty assignment. Now, he was a patrol officer. He also did some undercover work with drugs. He did TDY, temporary duty assignment. And it doesn't quite match the letters, but okay, that's what it is. Temporary duty assignment. What happens there is, let's say he's working in a smaller department, which he was, a smaller police agency, which is not the biggest place in town. And my daughter worked with Prince George's County. She's it's got so much work that it's ridiculous. He worked in a smaller area, less detectives available. So what happens is, you're working as a patrol officer, and they're like down. They need some help on a crime, and they're like, "You're not too stupid, so hey, come on over." They give you a TDY. You come in and you work under somebody as a sort of detective. And they see how you do, and you do the basic detective work. He says he's done all this detective work on death investigations and all this kind of stuff. He never says he was with a particular part of the unit. It's because he did TDY. He was always a patrol officer, but he worked. They probably pulled him off because he was pretty smart. They pulled him off for 2 weeks, maybe 2 months, God knows how long, to do detective work without the actual name. So, do I think he was a detective? He did not officially get the title, but I think he did enough detective work that I find his work, his analyses reasonable. I have never had a problem with his analysis. I don't always agree with him, but I like the way he explains. I'm like, okay, obviously you have experience. He spent 8 years on the police force, and he got in some issue with the police department, and they didn't get along, so he left. He went to the district attorney's office, and he became an investigator. You can call that a detective. There's a lot of things or names that aren't actually specific labels. I'm a criminal profiler, but people say, well, how'd you get that name? Well, because there's no rules. I call myself that, and you can believe it or not. He calls himself a detective when he was with the district attorney's office. Was he really? He was an investigator. And then he says, let me see if I have it here. Okay. So he had a bachelor's of science. He did a few courses in master's program, but didn't get them. Okay. While I was assigned to the district attorney's office, I created and maintained the cold case unit with Lindhart's blessing, a guy who couldn't stand, but he said was smart. I was the only member of the unit, so it was very easy to maintain. In other words, okay, dude, if you want to look at some cold cases, have at it. Does that mean he actually had a lot of cold cases to look at? Did they give him the time to look at them? I doubt it sincerely. He's not going to earn his paycheck. Yet it wasn't without hardship, as other police agencies did not seem to take too kindly to this kid interfering with cases that belonged to them. 100% true. So he's trying to I'm going to look at your cold case. And they're like, hell no. And that is an experience why I say that cold cases are hard to investigate, because the original police department does not want you interfering with their case. That is absolutely true. Police are very territorial about their cases. 100% true. Even if they are not being actively investigated, 100% true. I agree with him on this. This is the problem, that once the case goes cold, they're like, yeah, we're not wasting a lot of time on this. But hey, here comes some young buck or some crazy grandma, and they want to look at the case. And we're like, oh, screw it, man. Because all they're doing is trying to say we did a shitty job. And they're going to attack us. And then we're not going to give them the information. So there's a huge fight. It's true. Even if they're not being actively investigated. It's all about jurisdiction. Jurisdictions are huge. On December 19th, 2014, while I was working for the district attorney's office, I received a tip about a cold case murder of a child. All right, so then he goes on, he's trying to investigate this case. He says, I no longer saw all police as wanting to do the right thing. He and the police department separated. So already they were not seeing eye to eye. Yet, as I stated before, that is not all police. That is true. Just some. What I saw that day was jealous, paranoid, ego-driven cops. If you have to call me a crazy grandma to discredit me, I'm going to say you're pretty much just like them. They did not have the best interest of a dead 10-year-old girl at heart. So he was investigating some crime. When I do my channel, I say specifically, I am not a crime-solving channel. I am an educational channel. I want to show you how to analyze crimes. I'm hoping that detectives watch this channel so that if they're sitting in their cruiser, they're like, they're sitting there for 2 hours doing some whatever boring thing they're doing. They can click on my channel, and for 2 hours, they can get me to analyze a crime, and they can learn from that. They don't have to go to a seminar. They don't have to be sent. They don't have to be paid for. They can, for free, watch my channel over and over and over again, all the different crimes, and they can become better analysts, better crime scene analysts. That is my desire. I don't have to make more money for it. I just want them to learn. So that is my purpose. So if I don't know why Ken Mains wouldn't want me to educate detectives, but there they are. They are instead we're worrying about me and how I was trying to make them look bad according to them. All right. Now let's go into some other things he says. It is my belief that many cases, especially homicides, go unsolved because of egos. That is also true. These egos are those of the detectives and the investigators who have jurisdictions over these cases. They feel that it is their case. Always true, which is why it is so difficult to do cold case analysis to make any difference, because it is hard to get into a case where another jurisdiction feels they have 100% control. They feel it is their case and no one should interfere, even if they are not doing anything to move the case forward to resolution. This drives me absolutely insane with anger. Now that you're not with the police department, yes. I caught so much heat from this police agency for trying to help solve this murder that it was almost pushed me out of law enforcement. You're not in law enforcement anymore. Even though I was being proactive and trying to generate tips in order to solve the case, they saw it as a slap in the face, as if I were trying to overshadow them. Yes. All right. So he said, this is another point he said. Eventually, a detective has to attend those other cases because cold case leads don't come in while new clay. So, okay, let me back up here. He said one of the more reasonable things that Ken Main said. Again and again, cold case leads don't come in while new cases build up. Exactly Ken Main's. Police departments don't have enough detectives. They don't have enough people like you to pull in to do detective work, even though that's not what you're designated for. They don't have that. They're drowning in cases that they have to solve, the ones they can solve. And the other ones, they do get shelved. It's not nice, but it's true. And if the citizenry does not support giving money to the police to hire the right people, to train the detectives, it's the citizenry's fault. I'm going to say that. Because citizens these days don't like the police. They don't want to give them any money. Well, you get what you get in return. So he's saying, oh, they're just shelving these cases. Well, yeah, they are. Eventually, a detective has to tend to those other cases. So the cold ones go into a drawer and then into a vault. When I work cases, one of the reasons I said that I don't think it's worth working cold cases is because I spent my own money, flew to location, paid for the plane, paid for the hotel, paid for the rental car, spent a week not getting paid. I solved the crime in the sense that I looked at all the evidence and found that they went down wrong avenues, and here was the proper avenues. I outlined this in my book. The book. Okay. Okay. It's in the book. A lot of cases, I say, this is what I think. But because the evidence was no longer available or able to be used for prosecution, they're like, yeah, let's have a beer, Pat. Okay, thanks for being here. They hid that file. They told the family I couldn't help them. Now, if you've just spent all that time and money to work on a case that is never going to go to prosecution, even if you solve the dang thing, you're kind of going to get frustrated. So he says that. He says they go into a drawer and then a vault. Absolutely true. Once these cases move off a detective's desk, said Mains, it's really hard to get any attention for them. As a result, the overwhelming majority of cold cases will never result in a conviction. That is what I was saying, Ken Mains. Why do you think that why do you say I'm not credible when I say exactly what you said? The problem is, the first 48 are extremely important. And if you get past 4 years, 8 years, 10 years, 20 years, you're screwed unless you have DNA. Unless you have DNA. So very rarely, oh my gosh, once in a, I don't know, once in a very rare moment, when the cicadas come out, something like that. Do you have a chance that some freaky thing, a confession or some whatever, somehow some guy gets identified, you go to his house and you find all the evidence in his house, except for those extremely rare occasions. Most of the work done on cold case homicides are a waste of time. They are, unless there's DNA. And that's a fact. And I'm not going to back down from that. And then he says, okay, so they're not going to result in a conviction, which is why my whole book, people say, why did you have it? Why weren't they convicted? Because I could solve them, but it's too late for conviction. But there are also advantages to a cooling off period, and time can work to an investigator's benefit. Loyalties and allegiances, okay, change over time, Main said. We think differently as we age. Cold case detectives can use that to their advantage. Oh, what he's really talking about is the Innocence Project. The Innocence Project will find somebody to say, oh, I actually didn't see that dude. I'll tell you how cold cases are solved. Well, no, they're actually cases have been solved. Now they're being unsolved by the defense from the Innocence Project, who now comes up with people who claim they didn't see what they saw. Yeah, now people are being let out of prison, and oh, now the case is unsolved again. Okay, let me see what else we have here. All right, so then, okay. I agree with Ken Maynes on those points. The problem with cold cases is that it's hard to get them to being able to be actually prosecuted because it's too late. The evidence is gone. When I've come into cases 4 years later and I solved them, the problem is all the evidence to link the guy that I say did it is gone. And the detectives are like, yeah, we're not committing political suicide. We're going to hide that case, say you couldn't help us, and they move on. That doesn't mean cold case squads aren't worth it. Cold case squads within a police department usually pay attention to, they go through everything and they try to find as much DNA possibilities as they can. They want to examine things and see if there was stuff that was untested. If they can get DNA, they can close a case. Almost every cold case is solved with DNA. And he doesn't want to hear that. And I'm going to tell you why in a minute. So anyway, he decided, he started the American Investigative Society of Cold Cases. Okay, I have no problem with that. That's a sweet thing to do. He says he was frustrated, so he started this. And here it is. The actual original site is no longer available. It just goes to some kind of hacked thing. But he does have this on. This is over at WordPress, the American Investigative Society of Cold Cases, a professional review of the unsolved. He wanted to get together, and a brilliant idea, mind you. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see. Okay, here we go. I became stuck. He wanted to have like all the top people in the field, forensic people, profilers, whatever, to all get together so a detective could go to them and solve their cases. So he started it. I think that's pretty cool. I started one too. It was called Citizens for Case Closure. It crashed and burned. Why? Because I couldn't get anybody to cooperate. He started this, and as far as I know, in 2014 was about the last time I see anything significant on this site. He had the cold case of Amy, I can't pronounce her name, Mihaljevic. She's a famous case. I've talked about her. No one's ever going to solve that case, and he didn't solve that case. It's unsolved. As a matter of fact, in Unsolved No More, his book, his cases are unsolved. So I'm like, I'm over at your site. If you think that you can solve cold cases, why the hell don't I see a list of all the cold cases you've solved? There are zero. There are zero. You know why? Because you haven't solved any cold cases. You may have good analysis of cold cases. You may have found the most likely suspect. So have I. But it doesn't solve the cases in the sense it went to prosecution. That's why I wrote this book. I was upset. I said, I've worked so many cases, but they wouldn't go to prosecution. That was my whole point of the book, although it got screwed by the publishers. So let me see what else I have to say. Okay, so here, he wants to bring all these people in. Let's see what else he has to say. Okay, more things about that. Sorry, I'm just trying to check through what I've got here. Crime fighters, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we've gone through that. This is interesting. He talks about a case. He says justice has not been served in this case. It's a case he was working on for years. Then he says, nevertheless, I will not make an arrest until I feel in my mind unequivocally that this person will be convicted by a judge. Okay, so he's saying that because even if you suspect somebody, you can't have them prosecuted if you don't have enough evidence, which is my point. We rarely have enough evidence in cold cases. But worse, Ken, you aren't even a police officer in 2020. How the hell are you going to arrest anybody? I don't understand that, but we'll let that go. Maybe it was just a way to express things. Okay. But the point is, you can't arrest people without evidence, and you can know they did it. God knows I've known people did it, and I can't prove it because and the detectives aren't going to say anything. They're going to say, "Oh, Pat Brown couldn't help us." Why? Because they don't want to commit political suicide by saying she pointed out who the guy was. Obviously, we screwed the investigation up. They're not saying that. They're going, "Thanks, Pat." And it's the way it is. So no. Okay. So that's not anything. Okay. Let me try to look at a company. That's not anything. Okay. It's just I put a bunch of stuff up. All right. So here I am. Ken, I will still recommend people to your channel because they're one of the few people that actually analyzes crimes, and I think it's worthwhile. That you feel a need to trash me, to insult me, to call me basically a crazy old lady, is more on you than it is on me. That doesn't tell me a lot about you. Do I like you? No, I don't. You made me not like you. On top of that, very interesting. You claim that I don't have any credibility, but you put a psychopathic murderer from death row on your channel over and over again to profile crimes. He was more what? Credible than me? I'm going to say you were aiming for a television show with detective and murderer. Oh, they two together will make a great show. You never got the show, so you're probably pissed about that. But you have the gall, I'm going to say it's a gall, to say a psychopathic murderer on death row has more credibility than me when I've worked my heart out for that's almost 30 years now, working on crimes, writing books, what I really want to do is train detectives. My whole show, my whole YouTube channel is aimed in the long run for training detectives because I believe that detectives are the real profilers. They have the case in the first 48. They're the ones going to be working on the case. They never get training. It is true. Detectives go from patrol officer like you straight up to working on cases as a detective. Never went to detective school. They should for at least 3 to 6 months, at least something to train them in criminal profiling and forensics and psychopathology. They should do that, but they never get it. I trained myself for all of those things before I started looking at cases. You did not. Neither do most detectives. My whole channel is about training people to analyze. And if that helps them, if I can train detectives to analyze their own cases, I am happy. That's what I really want to do because I have realized that myself, much as I absolutely adore working on cold cases, does no good. I will step back and train detectives to do the job that they're never going to probably let me do anyway, because that's the way the police departments work. Police departments work that way, but you're pretending that somehow developing this organization that has never solved a crime. Hey, if I'm wrong, you put your whole bloody list of crimes, cold cases that you have solved since you started it. But the last I see is I haven't even seen anything in years that you even posted to that site. So I think you are part of what I call the cold case machine. You make money off of the concept. Oh my God, let's get the whole world involved in solving cold cases. People love solving cold cases. CrimeCon. People go to CrimeCon every year because people show up like John Douglas and you, and I don't know if you've ever been there, but they show up and they talk about things, and all the people, it's a freaking entertainment show. And there's families of victims of crime who show up with this undying hope that one of these people at the show will give a crap about them and solve their crime. And they will lie to them over and over. We're going to help you. We're going to solve your crime. Oh, we're going to catch that guy. It's a freaking lie. And they make money off of pushing what is pretty much like, true crime in general is kind of like crime porn. People watch it because it excites them. It's cheaply thrilling, and they get a kick out of it. And the people doing it often portray a lot of emotions, like, oh, that's so horrible. Oh my God, I just feel so. They're all faking that crap. They don't feel that stuff. They don't even know the victim or the family. They portray that. They're actors and actresses. They portray that because that brings people in so everybody else can get involved in feeling emotional about how sad it is. Oh my God, the crime is horrific. Oh my God, I feel so sorry for the family. I hope they solve the crime. It's a game, and it makes people a lot of money. You are playing the same game. I don't play I'm going to solve a crime, because I can't solve the crime. I can analyze a crime and teach. And you are actually teaching, but you go under this unsolved no more. I'm solving unsolved crimes. No, you're not. You're teaching, which I don't have an objection to, which is why I send people to your channel. But for God's sakes, you're not solving any damn thing. And neither are any of these other channels, but they make a boatload of money off of it because people love to be involved with solving crime, even if they're not. Does that mean that once in a great while, somebody doesn't solve a crime? If something freaky happens, yeah, there's always the anomaly. Oh, okay, so we spent hundreds of hours talking about unsolved crimes and how we're going to solve them. And hundreds of hours, we made tons of money. And there's one crime solved in 20 years, and we all go, oh my God, see how it works? Yeah. 99% of the time, it's DNA. Cold case squads belonging police departments. Now, could police departments use the efforts of criminal profilers and outside help in the early 48 and the training? Absolutely, so that they can get the evidence before it disappears. But if they can't do that, pretty much, unless they have a deathbed confession or some kind of other phony confession, which makes them close the case, generally speaking, it's DNA. So the cold case squad, you think they're going through everything just looking for, oh, I wonder what that witness said. Oh, I wonder what the profiler said. No, they're looking for DNA. They're looking to see, have we tested everything? If we haven't tested everything, maybe we'll get lucky on the DNA. That's the truth. And I'm a truth teller. I don't know what you are. You're so busy trying to take down other people. But I'm a truth teller. And on my channel, what I do is teach analysis. And that's all I do. And I will say, generally speaking, cold case investigations belong in the police department because you have never, I don't even know what you've ever solved outside of the police department because you have no ability to do so. You can give all the analysis you want, but it's not going to affect a cold case. Now, if somebody wants to come in here and write all the cold cases he has solved, do that. I will retract everything I said. But I don't see one case that they have solved. Vidoc, which is another one. Oh, they get people together once a month and have a dinner and chat about stuff. Vidoc, oh, it's so cool. It's like a Sherlock Holmesy thing. No, I don't think they've ever solved anything either. Because the reality is this: you have to have evidence, and evidence is what takes it to court. And I have solved crimes, but they're not prosecutable because by the time I solve them, it does no good, except in them. We know who did it, but hey, it's not going to court. Okay, I'm just rattled on because it's so annoying. I'm going to go to your 500,000 comments, and I'm going to answer some of those. All right. Maine's looking. No, I mean, again, I like his channel. I just wish he would stop doing what he does. He spends a lot of time trashing people as opposed to just do your analyses because they're good. I don't agree with all of them because I just, again, don't have to agree with everybody's final analysis of anything. You don't have to agree with mine and he doesn't have to agree with mine. But if you had any group of detectives working as a group, people will be putting in different ideas. And the point of profiling and crime scene analysis is not that one person wins. It's that it gives you an avenue which you can go down and find more evidence to convict. That's the whole point of it. It doesn't matter what I say unless it leads to more evidence. It doesn't matter what he says unless it leads to more evidence. If we're working and we can lead to more evidence, bully for all of us. Yeah, Vidoc. It was like the cool, like it was, Vidoc was presented as some kind of nobody invited me to that dinner. I'm just bitter. Okay. But because I'm a crazy grandmother and they wouldn't fight me. But anyway, people come to the dinner. What? Once a month they have a dinner and discuss a case. You think that's going to solve anything? Oh my God. Oh my God. Laura says, you're a voice for the voiceless, a beautiful woman, mother, granny, advocate for children. I'm an advocate for education. I homeschooled all my kids all the way through. And then I educated myself. I did get a master's degree in criminal justice. But most of my education has been self-educating, and I do not I will stand by that, because I read so much, I studied so much, and once I learned something from one book, I went to the next book. When I went to my master's course, I'm like, you call this for $30,000? This is nonsense. It was sad. Good. I want you to like what he says as far as he's analyzing. It is unfortunate he has this anti anybody else type of thing going. And I find that sad. Dinner is a tax write-off. And I didn't do well when you're working pro bono. Let me tell you, you can't write off very much. And people will say, "Well, Pat Brown, you're probably rich by now. You know, you wrote these books and stuff." I'm like, yeah, I wish. Training. No, we don't solve cases. This is the whole point. We can come to a conclusion, and I believe I've come to a correct conclusion on many cases. Let me just take a simple one. When he talks about how things are solved, cold cases. I've talked about this before. Todd Kohlhepp, the Superbikes case. If I remember, I'll link it below. I worked with the sheriff's department, with Sheriff Wright, who I call Sheriff Rom. But anyway, I worked with that department. I flew down on my own money. I flew down to South Carolina. I rented a car, rented a hotel. I worked for a week, pro bono. I was welcomed there. I got a little coin and everything. Hey, cool. What they wanted me to do was basically get the family off their back. I analyzed the crime. I said, look, you overlooked the number one guy. It's clearly, if everything points to this guy. And now they're like, what the hell are we going to do with that? So they just ignored it as much as possible, kicked me out of town. And then the sheriff actually had the gall to come out and say, I was just that TV lady. And I knew nothing about the crime except I read on the internet. So I wrote a whole bunch of blogs called I read it on the internet. If you're going to libel me, I'm going to speak up. Slander me, I'm going to speak up. Well, I read it on the internet, and then I laid out all the evidence. And as I read on the internet, and eventually Todd Kohlhepp was a guy who was arrested for a serial homicide. He's a serial killer, no question about it. So Sheriff Wright arrested him. That's good. But then the day after, he goes, oh my God, the guy confessed to the Superbikes mass murder. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And he says, this guy knew stuff. No, only the killer and I would know. And all the television channels came in and put it out there. I actually contacted all the television channels, the media outlets, because I worked with them. I'm like, hey, you know me, I work with you. That's a lie. That's an absolute lie. So what Sheriff Wright said was that Todd Kohlhepp said that every one of the victims was shot in the forehead, and he knew all the details of the crime scene. The real truth was Todd Kohlhepp knew nothing because none of the victims were shot in the forehead, and I have the autopsy reports. On top of that, he had the ballistics wrong. He had the order of the crime wrong. He had every freaking thing wrong. And I put all that out there, but to this day, nobody gives a crap because the media liked what Sheriff Wright had to say because it made a good story. Now he'll come along and say, oh, look, see, they solved this cold case. How did they solve the cold case? By a phony confession, because the guy was trying to get out of a death penalty, and he did. So now Todd Kohlhepp he's living. He's not going to get killed off, which he should be. But he's not the guy that committed he is a serial killer, but he didn't commit the Superbikes murders. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on that people don't want to admit. Serial killers are sometimes, there's certain crimes that they claim they committed. They're like, okay, let's add those five crimes and we'll cut them off. Then there's people who they get lucky on a certain thing. Somebody actually does confess to a crime they actually committed for some freaky reason. But the problem is, outside of law enforcement, all our little organizations and all our YouTube crap, we're solving crimes is garbage. We're not doing it. We're making money off of it, not me, because I don't claim I solve crimes. I want to educate and teach, because if I can get any detectives, any people going into police work to learn to profile better, to learn to analyze better, they're going to have that case that I'll never see, and they'll have it in the first 48. That can make the difference. And when I decided not to do any more pro bono work and cold case work, it was because I felt it was better to teach the people who could actually to do something with it, than for me to come in 5 to 10 years later, spin my wheels, say this is who did it, and then slink away while they hid the case file. What was the purpose? I love analyzing crime. I love working with the police departments, but I'm also realistic. If you can't do what you love to do, you better do the next best thing, which is help people. And helping people is training detectives. I think detectives need to go to detective school. I think they need to learn the things that I can teach them. And I hope they sit in their cruisers when they're bored out of their gourds, click on my channel and learn something about analyzing. And I don't have a problem if they click on his channel and learn analyzing as well. I don't. All right. Thank you very much. I'm surviving. Okay. I'm a little annoyed. Can you see? Let's get some crazy granny merch going. Now, I haven't done a merch thing at all. I just don't have the energy. Well, that's interesting. Legal-minded friends. I'm a UK lawyer and lawyers seldom agree. Well, of course not, because they're taking opposite sides. Oh, thank you, Laura. I forgot to add you're an amazing teacher. I hope. That's where I'm at now. Aisha says, Ken Maines lacks substance. Pat, being able to analyze situations does not mean you have the substance to navigate through it. You see, this is the thing, the baby with the bathwater thing. I think he's not bad at what he does. I just think he's got an ego that's so massive that he can't accept anybody else can do anything. And this annoys me with profiling. How many doctors do we have in the world? How many lawyers? How many teachers? But profilers, we can only have 10 of them. And they all better be hooked with the FBI, and they all better be ex-detectives who are in good with the FBI, and we all better be a little club. And we can't have anybody from the outside. Nobody else can learn the methodology. And I am like this. If you can't teach the methodology, it's not a methodology. A lot of the FBI stuff is, in my opinion, terrible profiling. They do a lot of stuff that they guesswork, and they do stuff with statistics, and it's a white guy lives with his mother and has a green car and has a dog and a knife collection. Where the hell do you get that from a crime scene? And they say, well, we can't teach it because it's from all the years we have in the field. Garbage. If you can't teach it, it's not real. Scientifically, anything done logically and scientifically, you can teach. If you can't teach it, now maybe people can't learn it, but if you can't teach it, it's because you're full of crap. You don't have anything to teach because you're making it up. It's nonsense. It's like psychic crap. Thank you, Kiwi. I appreciate that. I say I'm on a roll today. This thing came in. I'm like, so frustrating. Pat talks more common sense than most other channels. I don't always agree with her, and you don't have to. But I can see where she got there, and she doesn't act like a jerk when you disagree. Well, only if you're really, really annoying. If you call me an idiot, then I turn into a jerk. But no, you don't always have to agree with me, because if I believed that, I would have to believe I was God or goddess, and I don't believe that. I use as much logic as I can to analyze crime. And there are things, occasionally somebody will come in, which is really fun during my shows. I'll be doing a show and I'll say, what do you think? And somebody will come up with something. I'll go, never crossed my mind. I'm like, that is good. Because we come from different parts of life. We see different things. And sometimes we just see things differently. And somebody will come up with something that just never freaking occurred to me. And that's why it's really great to have a team where people can bring their ideas, because sometimes we just don't see it. There's only so much in my life I experience, and there's other things other people experience, and I haven't got a clue. Culturally, sometimes our status, where we are in society, we don't understand certain things. I always remember the case where I called the police department out in California, and they were wondering why this guy committed this crime against his family. And they're like, who could it be? I said, look, that dude is Indian, from India. I'm going to say the family was from India, and they were part of a mandir, which is a temple. And they gave a lot of money to that temple. And this person came in, somehow got into their house and went to their safe and did a whole bunch of things. And they're like, why did they do this? I said, because they know they have gold in the safe. Indians love gold. 22 karat gold it's a thing. And I spend a lot of time in the Indian community. I've been over to India 5 times. I own 22 karat gold. It's my savings account, like older Indian ladies. I understand the culture. I said, check to see the Indian guy who committed this crime, because he's the only one I can see that would know what was going on inside that house, would know there was gold in that safe. And they were like, we never thought of that. I'm like, well, you don't hang around Indian communities. Why would you know? So I remember another case where I was called about a crime down in Florida where somebody was kidnapping people and taking them to ATMs. And I said, check out the Mexican dudes. And somebody thought I was being racist. I'm like, no, I spent time in Mexico. In Mexico, they have a crime methodology there, which is, you get in just won't knock something over. You jump in a cab and they kidnap you and take you to ATMs and make you withdraw money. It, at one point, was a Mexican crime. I love Mexico. I absolutely adore Mexico. But I know the crime system, so Uber's better. Take Uber in Mexico. But I knew these things, but I don't know other things I haven't a clue about. I don't ride a motorcycle. I don't listen to rock music. I'm not a fancy person. I don't understand high society. There's things I don't know. I don't have a dog. Somebody's gonna say, oh my God, you're not a dog person. But if you're a dog person, you might know something about a crime based on a dog. What the hell do I know? What is that? Okay. Okay. He did say crappy things about me. And, but what I'm more annoyed about is that he's not recognizing the truth about solving cold cases. And he's claiming that I'm not believable. I'm not professional. Then I'm not, because I point out the fact that most cold cases are not solved by people like you and groups of people on the internet that are making money off of pushing unsolved crimes. So anyway, he used to. He's got them back, but I think he's monitoring them very heavily. They're all so positive. I can't believe nobody said anything negative. How about a sports bra with a cell phone holder in it? There's no cell phone holder. You can just do this when you gained weight. This is your sports bra just makes a great cell phone holder because I'm a crazy grandma. God, people have no sense of freaking humor. Oh my Lord. Thank you very much. Loved your program where you analyzed the Proudfoots. There's been a lot of good stuff done on the Proudfoots. Of course, there are other people who've done a great job doing their analysis. So, I'm not the only one out there. Oh, yeah, we already went there. Okay, let me see what else you have to say. I'm going backwards now. Texas redhead. We need 12 crazy grannies at the bus stop. By the way, Richard, who sent me this thing, which I hadn't even seen and wouldn't have known about, maybe it would have been better if I hadn't. He talked about he is also anti the civilian jury system. He agrees with me that civilian jury system is like pulling 12 people off a bus stop that have no training in crime scene analysis or psychopathology or anything, and they throw them in a courtroom and they expect them to be able to understand. They have experts in there that aren't allowed in the courtroom unless they're experts in their field. But the jury who's supposed to think, who makes a determination over the experts, is supposed to understand the experts that weren't allowed in there unless they were experts. But the jury is allowed in there if they're no crap. Now, there's nothing wrong with the jury as far as human beings go. But I've always said, it's unreasonable to think that 12 people who have no training can understand everything that's going on in the courtroom. I think we should have a professional jury, not judges, because there can be, I don't like just a judge determining, but I like 5 to 7 criminal profilers on a jury. I would have Ken with me on a jury. So Ken would give his opinion, I give mine. There'd be 5 other people. And we who have no reason to be overly emotional or have any issues would look at the evidence and 7 of us would make a determination, I'd go with that. But I've been fighting that for probably 2 decades now. Oh, I have to say this just to be fair. I watched her Death on the Nile. I think I even did a show on it. Go check it out. Put in Profiler Pat Brown, Death on the Nile. And I was appalled at how bad the profiling was in that. I was like, oh, I love that. Like Agatha Christie. I used to love Sherlock Holmes, and I found his profiling wasn't so great either. But, I've learned a lot since I've been a teenager. Let's see what Tom Webster, who I don't know who Tom Webster is, said the other day during a live chat, how do you think a YouTuber with half the amount of evidence is going to solve any case if the cops can't even do it with all the evidence regarding Delphi? Okay, I'm thinking Tom Webster thinks it's Odinist, first of all. The cops have solved, as far as they're concerned, they have the right person in Delphi. Okay, they believe Richard Allen is the guy that committed the crime. So far, I believe the evidence points to Richard Allen. The whole bit about the Odinist is such nonsense from the defense side. It's just smoke and mirrors. And I guess Tom Webster is an Odinist pusher, that Richard Allen is a patsy. I don't buy that at all. So, yeah, I have issues with that. Peter Hyatt, yes, I'm 100% a Peter Hyatt fan. Absolutely. Oh, this would be nice. Cheryl says, I learn a lot from your channel. I'm glad. I agree more money for profilers in police detective areas would help. Sure it would. And one of the problems we're having today is they can't, the decimation of the police force is so bad now. They can't get new police officers. The police officers that have been there 20 years are retiring. They could stay on, but they're like, I'm out of here. I'm not dealing with this crap anymore. They are so low on police help. They can't hardly get to the scenes on time. And that's because the citizens have bought a lot of junk about the police, anti-police on everything, that they're all horrible. And there are bad police officers. There's always going to be. There's bad police. There's bad teachers. There's bad everybody. So there's bad doctors. I just did a show on an anesthesiologist who killed a bunch of his patients. I mean, there's always bad people. You don't say, oh my God, every single doctor and nurse is a horrible human being. Every teacher, don't let your kids be around them. What are you going to do? Most of the police are trying to do their jobs. But when they are shot down on the street in cold blood, just down the street the other day, 2 teenagers shot a police officer like literally 1 minute away from my house. Shot him, or whoever it was, shot that person in their cruiser. And the first thing I did was find out whether my daughter was in her unmarked cruiser, because that was an unmarked cruiser. And she said, no, it's not me. What kind of job is it that you drive down the street and teenagers try to kill you? So that's why the police are retiring at huge rates. And they used to hang on forever because nobody, when you've been a police officer for 20 years, it's hard to give up that whole role. So you feel lost. So people stayed on for an extra 10. And people joined the police department because they're excited to be part of the police force. People aren't joining anymore. So what are you going to do when your police force is decimated? You can't afford anything anymore. So now you want better investigations? Good luck on that. Good luck on that. Oh, that's nice. Peter Hyde admires Pat. Oh, I didn't know that, but thank you, Peter. I love Peter. I've known Peter for a really long time. Very honorable fellow. Very, very cool. Very, very cool guy. Okay. I'm a granny too. So grannies don't have brains or common sense. Is that what he's saying? This is, as a female, I can tell you, and as an older female, I can tell you that instead of insulting me for my abilities, the insult comes as to how I look. Like one woman, actually, women are just as bad as men. A woman wrote the other day, she goes, this one made me laugh. She goes, I recognized your voice, but I didn't recognize you. I used to watch you all the time on Nancy Grace, but I didn't recognize you anymore. And now you're a complete blithering idiot. But you see the thing she put in, I didn't recognize you. In other words, you gotten old, dearie, and therefore I didn't recognize you because you used to look hot. Okay, well, I was 40. I'm near 70. I haven't done Botox or any kind of plastic surgery because I don't like knives and I just don't want to waste my time. And I recognize the fact that I'm going to look 68 because that's what I am. But I'm smarter at 68 than I ever freaking was at 40. I can guarantee you I have that many more years of experience. I've been through so much. I've learned so much that I have so much more to teach and to analyze better. I haven't got dementia, So if I don't have dementia, which is an issue these days, Alzheimer's and all that, if I don't have that, why would my brain be less than it was at 40? So I don't look as hot. Okay, if you're not going to date me, what does it matter? I want you to, and when I do my shows, people say, well, you could do like fancier hair. I'm like, I can't, my hair is really pretty, but I just don't have any skill with a hairbrush and I don't do good makeup. I do this in 5 minutes and that's just enough to make me look undead. So, I'm like, why are you here? Are you here to look at me or are you here to learn? If you're not here to learn, you can just go someplace else and find yourself a 30-year-old who sits on her bed with candles and tells a story. She's pretty. She'll be your BFF. If you're not here for learning, perhaps you're in the wrong place. And I stand by that. So, oh, that's very nice. Wow. Another Peter Hyatt recommendation. I looked up Peter Hyatt based on your recommendation. Yeah, Peter Hyatt has always been a gentleman. He's a great guy. I don't, again, always agree with Peter Hyatt's determinations. And he probably doesn't agree with mine. Why do we always have to be, 100% back everything he says, 100% back everything she says? Well, then you're just a suck up. If you agree to everything I said, you need to get some psychological help because I am hardly 100% correct. I never have been that. I'm never going to be that. I'm a human being. And so Peter Hyatt, there's some things I've disagreed with him, but in general, I've been very impressed by him. I've been impressed by the stands he's taken, by his honesty. He doesn't kowtow to the media, to the industry, to whatever's popular. I love Peter Hyatt. I've always been a big fan of his because of that. And I just did a show on Madeleine McCann. I talked about, I'm going to botch his name again, Mark Sinokonoko. Mark Sinokonoko. Crap. I can't get that guy's name. Hold on a second. He's got a name which I pronounce in 2 different ways, and one of them is wrong. I love this guy. He's an Australian. He's a wonderful guy. He's one of the best journalists I've ever come across, and I will sing his praises to the hills. Mark Sinokonoko. Mark Sinokonoko. Okay. So Mark Sinokonoko is one of the finest journalists I've ever seen. And I love him for his ethics. I love him for his honesty. I love him for his determinations. So there's certain people I absolutely respect, both for their very good abilities in analysis or journalism, and also love their ethics and their personalities. Peter Hyatt and Mark Sinokonoko. Mark Sinokonoko. I appreciate both of them. Also appreciate Sonia Poulton. I appreciate Colin Sutton, who has clearly proven to be ethical in refusing to do the Madeleine McCann review when he realized that he wasn't going to be allowed to do it properly. There's a number of people across time that I have really, really liked. And I always support somebody who will give a different look at a certain crime, even if I expect certain things are true. Like he did a thing on the Julie Ferguson case, and I know where he got his information from. Now, I worked close by on the Julie Ferguson case. I say close by because I wasn't hired by the police department, but I was in with one of the detectives in the police department, and I lived right next to Greenbelt, Maryland, where the Julie Ferguson crime went down back in the 1990s, early, and I can't remember quite when. 1995, I think. Julie Ferguson was a high school girl who got killed senior year, and she got brutally murdered. And I know I knew a lot of things that were happening around there. And so I knew her mom. I talked with her mom. I talked with the detective on the case. I did a lot of stuff. I knew a lot more than did Ken Maines. Ken Maines did his analysis of the case, and I don't quite agree with it. Why? Because I spent more time on the case than Ken Maines. I had a lot more information than Ken Maines. But I don't diss him for that, because there's cases I've looked at where somebody comes in and goes, Pat, did you know? And I'm like, didn't know that. But if I'm not hired to work on the case and I'm not spending hundreds and hundreds of hours, so I devour every single piece of information that ever existed, I'm going to go with what I know from the whatever I can get. Julie Ferguson, he got from the internet and from some people who were involved, and he put his thing together. If he's going to put out a case quite often, he's going to do exactly what I do. He's going to have so much information and no more than that information, unless he's actually literally worked the case. I worked the Superbikes case in South Carolina. I can go heavily into that. I worked on the Andrea Sincata case, which was absolutely unbelievable mess. I worked on the Andrea Sincata case. When you look at my video on Andrea Sincata, I go into detail and depth because I was there and I worked on it. If he does a show on that case, he only knows what he sees on the internet. And apparently he never watches my shows, so he never knows what I know. So no, if he's going by what he knows, he's giving us analysis. That's what he does. And sometimes I will do the same. So, let's just to be unfair to other people because you decided they don't have a right to exist is pretty sad. And I'm not. I want to point this out because people say this and it's just not true. Laura, you're a voice for the voiceless, a beautiful woman, mother, granny, advocate for children, the missing. I am not. This is not what my channel has never been about, being an advocate. People say, oh my God, you're keeping that person's name out. That is not my channel. There are channels who spend time telling stories and bringing the family on and keeping the name of the victim out. I am not that. Don't give me credit for what I don't deserve. I don't do that stuff. I do education. The only reason I ever do anything on anything is to educate. Do I have a heart for victims? Of course. Do I have a heart for missing children? Of course. Do I have a heart for unsolved cases? Of course. Do I have a heart for the families? Of course. But that's not what my channel is about. So I'm not out there to keep somebody's name out in the press. That would be unfair of me to say that I do that. I don't. I've done stuff recently on Sebastian Rogers, and people say, oh my God, you're keeping his name out. No, I'm not. I'm talking about Sebastian Rogers because I'm analyzing the case. Other people are keeping his name out. Because I did an analysis, his name might be out there, but that's not why I did it. Don't give me credit where credit's not due. I don't do that kind of work. I'm an educational channel. That's what I'm about. I personally believe that a lot of times it doesn't make a damn bit of difference how much we keep Sebastian Rogers' name out. Do I believe he's alive? No. I do not believe Sebastian Rogers is alive. I'd be shocked. If he shows up alive, I'm going to be thrilled, but I'll be shocked as hell because I don't believe he ran away. And I don't believe a child who is as autistic as they claim, walks out with absolutely nothing, can manage to hide that long and just be perfectly fine. Or that he was kidnapped by some serial killer. I mean, some child predator or something and has been kept in his basement. The chances of him being J.C. Dugard are so about zero. I'm going to say, much as I want that child to be found alive, I don't believe he is. I believe that the evidence points to something happened to Sebastian Rogers. And it's about the police finally trying to figure out how they can prove what happened to him, find out where probably his body is, and taking the people in who did it to him. That's what I think. So I'm not trying to keep his name out there because I think it's all in the police's hands at this point in time. And I hope they solve it. That's all I can say. That he is. He did turn off commenting. He is oversensitive. He said that. He said he hates people. He says people have no right to talk about him because they don't have his expertise, and how dare they? Now, mind you, I sort of agree with Ken on some of this. You see, I'm not opposed to a lot of what he says. Believe me, people say so many shitty things about me, including him, that if I look at the comments or other channels, I would crawl into a cave and take, you know, and hide out there for the rest of my little existence that I have very little of because I'm a grandmother and I'm probably old. And people say things. I've been called old hag, old crone, a washed up. I've been named everything in the book, and by him, by a person who should know better. I've been called that by what he calls just the minions on the internet who have no business. They're just these losers sitting at their computers and saying shitty things. Okay. He says, well, they have no right. But then people like him come and do the same dang thing. And the comments can be very, very vicious. The reason I keep my comments on, and I've always kept my comments on, is because among all the people who are saying nasty things, which I just go, if I see them, I just block them. A good portion of the time, I never see any of them. You can, the more popular video is, you got 1,000 comments, you're not going to look at that crap. What you have coming in, people don't understand, is on YouTube, you have YouTube Studio, and what they send you is some of the most recent comments. So if I put a show up and I get some very recent comments, I actually try to respond to people because I love communicating with people. And I recognize a lot of your names, even if you're not patrons. Click on the link below, join Patreon, become my patron, $5 a month, 8 live shows that you can be in the chat room. This is an unusual public one, but I recognize some of your names, even if you're not patrons, you're subscribers to the channel. I recognize you, and you say some very interesting and useful things, and I respond to that. Then I see some bad things, and sometimes I go, block. But believe me, after a while, I don't see most of that stuff. I don't know. There's probably a ton of nasty little comments about me on all of my videos, especially me because I'm a female and I'm older and I don't have tats, and I can't say I was with law enforcement, which I never was. And it wasn't FBI either, even though I've been misrepresented sometimes by media channels as that. I am an independent profiler, have always been. But he has been very upset about comments on Amazon. He's got trashed on his book for a good portion. A lot of people trashed him on his book, this one. And I believe I was trashed on my book too. So, hey, and welcome to the club, Ken. Put yourself out there. You're gonna get trashed. And now he had comments which he was upset about. And when I looked at his comments, they were quite positive compared to my comments. I'm like, well, they're treating you a lot better, probably because you're a guy, you're law enforcement, you got tattoos, you're looking at a dude, and I'm the crazy grandmother. So you did a lot better than me. But I just understand that that's the way things are. And I'm like, I'm not going to get bent out of shape about it. I laugh most of the time. I just laugh about it because it's kind of funny. Once in a while, somebody makes a comment that I'm like, got a point. You got a point? All right. It's a good point. I accept that. But a lot of times it's just nasty stuff. And I didn't see that much on his channel. So either he got a lot less because he was law enforcement and a dude, or he was working overtime to get rid of every single negative comment. And the comments he made, this recent one where he trashed me, I've seen not one negative comment against him and for me. So I'm going to say he's been watching and clicking. He says he does. He said he put the comments back because he took them away. He put the comments back now. And he says, I do not look at them. I do not waste my time with them. It's just you guys. It's for you guys only and for you to talk to each other. Do I believe that? Not really. Not really. Okay. You don't have to defend. I said when I started, I'm not here to defend myself. You don't have to try to defend yourself, but I'm glad you are. I'm not defending myself. People think I get it's a personal, like, oh, I'm taking it to heart. I'm so sad. No, I'm trying to clarify something which concerns me because I want to point out the issue of cold cases and why cold cases, generally speaking, are not solved by anybody on the outside. Having these little organizations going on YouTube, they're making money off of saying, oh, we care about the families of the murder victims. We want to solve their cases. That's how they make their money. And they will not tell the success rate. And to me, the whole point of anything is to be successful. And if you can't prove any success rate, it doesn't work. Then therefore you should move your efforts to something that works. I tried your route, Ken. It didn't work. I enjoyed some of it. I met great people. I loved doing the analysis of these cases, but it didn't make a difference. So I said to myself, I better shift over to training, to educating, because that would make more of a difference than me saying, I'm going to solve cold cases. Okay, everybody, I'm solving cold cases. Look at me. No. So you're not truthful. And that bothers me. You're not solving cold cases. You may work on one supposedly because you're all involved in it and you're putting it all over your YouTube channel and whatever. But if you're going to say you solve cold cases, give me a freaking list that you solved by being involved that had nothing to do with DNA. Give me a list. Hey, I will come back and apologize and say, man, dude solved 20 cases and I didn't know about it. But your own society doesn't have one case listed that they solved. And I'm going to say, you're a braggart. You are a braggart. You brag about every person who's ever said anything kind about you. Whether I don't know. Sometimes they said things, you got them on their book saying, he's the greatest detective that ever existed. I'm pretty sure they wrote that because you asked them to. And they put it on your book. That happens. People who sell books often ask people to put little blurbs on. It doesn't mean they really believe it. They just put the blurbs on. And maybe they did like you. Maybe they liked you as a buddy. You had beers together. I don't know. But I don't see any evidence that you are solving tons of cold cases. Now, your heart may be in it, but I don't see your proof. If you're going to say this is what works, you better damn well prove it. Or maybe you should just go with the fact that presenting cases that you analyze is the education that detectives need, which is why I won't tell people to not look at your channel, because I think you offer a good education in that. But I just wish you would stop lying about how many cases you solved and stop trashing people like me for no reason other than what? I don't know what your issue is. You could be just the greatest guy analyzing cases and offering a point of view. You got twice as many subscribers as I do. You're making good money. You don't need to do this crap. You just don't. Lisa, 22 karat gold looks much more beautiful side by side to our 14 karat. 100% true. I never wore jewelry as an American because I hated 14 karat gold. I thought it was ugly. And then when I found 22 karat from India, I fell madly in love. If you go to my Cleopatra series, I do wear some of my 22 karat gold jewelry, and it's just so shiny and pretty. I'm absolutely in love. And it doesn't lose its value. So it's just my savings account. I do it. Older Indian ladies do. And I have that as my gold, as opposed to having gold coins or, gold, whatever. I have gold jewelry and I get to enjoy it. Not here on the show. I don't wear it for the show, but I can enjoy it by putting on pretty saris and all my things, going to an event. And then that stuff is worth money. And it doesn't lose it doesn't lose its, how much it's worth. Pretty cool stuff. Just in case you want to buy 22 karat gold. Thank you very much. I love your sense of humor. Well, some do, some don't. And some people, why I don't spend all my show looking sad. And I never laugh. I should just do this for my whole show. Oh my God, it's so sad. Yeah, I like to the topic may be serious and my analysis may be educational and hopefully accurate and useful. And do I laugh in between and make jokes? Yes, I do. Why? Because I just have no desire not to have a good time when I go to work. I don't have fun just being all sad and most of these people are pretending sad, by the way. They don't know these people that have been murdered. And they're like, oh my God. I'm like, oh, come, you're just acting. You don't feel that. You're just doing it for your show. The only times when everybody see me get teary-eyed is when I'm telling my own story about something that is truly hurts my heart from my memories. They'll see me lose it a little bit. And occasionally when I've talked about talking to a family, when I interacted with a family, when they're telling me what happened to their child, I've had moments where I've, tried not to cry. But that's because I'm actually interacting with a family, not because I'm telling a story 10 years later. I just think that's mostly acting. I'm not sure what that means. I'm a crazy grandmother too. Doesn't mean we're not smart. What is he not a crazy middle-aged dude? He's turning 50, I think. Yeah, you're losing your hair, Ken. Okay, it's just this silly nonsense. I think I love the idea of a professional jury. I do sometimes think they get it wrong. It's a tricky situation, the professional jury idea, but I think there's no reason why people couldn't go to school, get their bachelor's degree in professional juror, learning all the stuff that I've learned, and then be able to they pick their names randomly for this crime, that crime, this crime. They don't have, they're not like linked to anything. They come in with the other jurors, they sit there and they've all been trained. And it's not like one judge who's like golfing with the the powers that be going, yeah, I'm going to make sure that guy goes down. It's not like that. They would at least have the training. And in today's world, with the defense attorneys and the lying experts who are paid a lot of money to lie, it's very hard for the jury. I feel sorry for them. They get paid garbage money to spend hours upon end being either bored or having to see stuff they never wanted to see in their lives. I think it's like inhumane and ridiculous. So, by the way, just let me say, if you want to get out of jury duty, it's this simple. Don't answer the jury letter. If the jury letter does not come by certified mail, which it does not, they can never prove you ever got it. Just ignore it. And other than that, you go in, they ask you for jury duty, you go in and you yell something, they say, what do you think about death penalty? Love that death penalty. Die, die, die. And they'll let you go. Or say you're a criminal profiler. I'll never be on a jury. The defense will never allow me on a jury. Why? Because they know I can analyze. Thanked and excused. Bye-bye. See ya. So many easy ways to get off. Another crazy grandmother here. My kids are amazed by what random items I pull out of my bra. I used to think this was silly stuff, but I don't know if how many of you, okay, you have to be probably my age. Do you remember the very, very wonderful movie Gigi with Leslie Caron? Actually, there was an original Gigi which on the stage, which had fabulous music. But anyway, Gigi with Leslie Caron. She is playing a young woman who is growing older, and she wonders when she's going to be a woman. I think it is Gigi, isn't it? I think it's Gigi. And the woman who's teaching her stuff basically tells her that when she drops her necklace into her, she loses her necklace and it slides south. If it falls on the floor, she hasn't reached that point yet because she's not well endowed enough. But if it gets stuck, then I'm a woman. And at a certain point, especially if you've gained weight when you get my age, nothing falls through anymore. But man, it is so incredibly convenient because I don't need a pocket, and I know exactly where my phone is. All right. Anyway, the whole defund the police is a crappy movement. It's done a lot of damage. It's done a tremendous amount of damage. And again, it's not that we shouldn't have good oversight of police. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't prosecute bad police. But my God, what's happened now is people are now complaining. They're like, in our area, which was really a very low crime area in Maryland, the carjackings are outrageous now. I mean, they're just carjacking right and left. There are also cars crashing into 7-Elevens and just pulling the ATMs out. The guns, the shooting at police it's just insane. And this is a high income area. And when I moved here, it's a 90% African American area, and I'm a minority here. I went to the parks. That's one of these international days. And the teenagers there were wonderful. This was like 10 years ago. The teenagers there were so well dressed and so polite. And I'm like, what a great community I've moved into. I saw most of the adults were highly educated. A lot of them worked for the government. They were teachers. They just great community. And it stayed that way until the last number of years when everything shifted and it's gone out of hand. The high school students are running wild. The violence is just increased, and it has nothing to do with it being an African American community. It just has to do with teenagers across the country, no matter what race they are, getting out of control. And the fact the police are no longer able to keep up with it, and the court system has failed us all. So it's a mess. It's a horrifying mess. Let's see. I'm looking at some. Maybe Ken has been watching too much Monty Python, so he's afraid of getting attacked by a roaming gang of old women. Me. Ah, my Lord. I just started watching Peter, and I really like both his skills and personality. It doesn't seem egotistical at all. He is not. He is a genuine and generous human being who, believes in what he does. He's confident in his work, and he should be. But he also says, hey, maybe I might not be right about this. And all of us have to say that. I mean, there's no way that the point of criminal profiling and crime scene analysis, statement analysis, and all this stuff isn't to be right. It's to point the police, if you're doing it properly, at the time the crime has just gone down, you're trying to point the police in the right avenue so that they can find more evidence, because your opinion doesn't get you into a court of law. Your opinion might help you search the right guy's house, and then you go to his house and you find the body there. But if you're looking at the wrong guy, you go to his house and it's like clean as a whistle. You're like, what the heck? It's because it was not the right guy. So it's not that your opinion can prove anything, but your opinion can lead to a better avenue of investigation. That's what criminal profiling is supposed to be about. That's it. And that's what all of this is supposed to be about. So it's really hard to get some of these concepts across because there's so much. If you watch a lot of the FBI stuff, the FBI shows and all that stuff, it's all such nonsense that people believe things that just aren't true and they don't work the way they do. And every time I do my shows, I keep saying, I'm trying to teach you reality, how things really work. You might want it to work this way, but it doesn't work that way. Ken, you might want to believe that you can have an organization that apparently is not even functional, and that organization is going to bust open all these cold cases, but it doesn't happen that way. You may wish it, and I wish it too, but it doesn't work. And if something doesn't work, why do you keep doing stuff that doesn't work? Why don't you do things that work? And that's why I'm working on the concept of teaching detectives, getting more. I have so many different versions of how I'm going to do this if I live long enough, because I'm a crazy old grandmother. But I'm doing the channel now, and I'm going to start a whole school on the channel, which is going to has specific pieces of information, short stuff for just understanding each one of these. It's all set up. One is I'm going to have a school of criminal profiling, which is considered it's going to be practical, because when you're a detective, you don't have time to learn master's level psychopathology. Let's understand you don't give a crap about that. You're like, I got this crime in front of me. What can you tell me now to solve my crime? It has to be practical. So I'm going to have it. I have the 5 sections, which is similar to what I taught in Excelsior when I developed that course. It's going to have forensic pathology, criminal profiling, crime scene analysis. Trying to remember what I have in there. Serial crimes. What's the other one? I forgot. There's 5 sections. 5 sections. And I'm going to then put in short, because you know me, I'm very long-winded. I'll go on forever. But these are going to be short. And the idea is I want to present a topic, specific topics. I want detectives and wannabe detectives and people, anybody connected to this whole area to watch these short ones. And then I want them to go to my crime scene analysis, all the different crimes I analyze, and go through the 2 hours and watch the whole process. So they're going to get the specifics, and then they can see how it works. And that'll all be free to the public. It'll be free to the detectives. And I want it to stay free because otherwise nobody wants to pay for crap if they can avoid it. And the detectives are, I say, they're out there and they're like, what can I watch? I want them to watch my channel. And I want them to start clicking on the things that will help them. I've been trying to work with a police chief who's been absolutely fabulous, trying to put together a seminar. And that poor guy, I mean, he's been hanging around for years now. And my problem has been this: I don't want to put together a seminar, which is just another 3-day seminar where people come and they drink a lot of beer. As soon as they, like, when is this ending? And they go drink beer together and they network and they don't really care what's being presented. And what's being presented is a bunch of hodgepodge. What I want is whatever's presented is to be 100% useful that they can take away with it. And I want to present a methodology as opposed to just a bunch of stuff. And I've been working on that, trying to figure it out for a really freaking long time. And it's not going well because it's difficult. And I don't want to I want it to be the right thing. And whether I'll ever do that, we'll see. Oh, aren't you nice? I'm still alive. I breathe. Hey, that's all I can say. That's all I can say. Let's see. Pat oh, did I? Oh, okay. I'm sorry then. Pat recommended Tom. I don't remember his name. Really did Missy Beavers? Pat recommended Tom Webster for his work on Missy Beavers, but has forgotten him. Okay, I did. I don't, names are really, unless I am constantly knowing about them. He's very logical, not supportive of the oldness theory. Oh, thank God. Small channel, but good humor and intelligence. Oh, God. Sorry, Tom. Wow. Okay. I'm just not. I might have recommended him. I don't care if you're a small or large channel if I think you're good. The Missy Beavers case, there's a whole frickload of people there. Oh, the husband did it. The father-in-law did it. It's all nonsense crap. And I did a show on that. And I said, look, as far as I can see, there's no evidence that the guy was even waiting for Missy to show up. It's like somebody who was robbing the place, burglarizing, and weird fruitcake. And then she showed up and all hell went bad. I don't remember what Tom Webster said, but I'm going to check it out now. Because now I feel bad. But so many people have been pushing the Odinist theory lately. Okay, we're not going to take a picture of that, just so I can remember. They've been pushing that Odinist theory thing so severely. And if he's not, bless you, Tom Webster. I'm going to check him out. Say good things about him next time. I just want to point this out. I just look my age. There's no, people keep going on about, oh, people don't look that age. I look in the mirror. I know exactly what I look like. I do. And that's why when people say, why do you use Face App on your thumbnails? You look so much younger there. I'm like, yeah, because I'd rather see me in a slightly younger, better look than during my shows. And so, it's life. It's life. And I accept that. And, I don't have a lot of energy to try to fight every single bit of it. I want to be able to do what's most important in life, which is offer something to other people, have good friends, good family, something I like doing. And I don't have a lot of time to worry about the rest of the stuff, because I'll guarantee you this, no matter how much shit you do, every year you look worse. Smile a lot, because that's what works the best. That's horrible. Cherie says, look at the officer who's on training day, stopped at a red light and was shot in the back. Yeah, I mean, people say, oh, police officers, they should know they're going to a dangerous line of work. If they can't handle that, they shouldn't go into it. They didn't go into it believing that the citizens would kill them. They always knew there was going to be a risk, arriving at domestics, that kind of thing can be a risk. Traffic stops have always been a risk because you never who the heck you're stopping. Could be a guy who's got guns in his car, drugs in his car, and he'll just take you down. That has always been you always know that. But when citizens start killing him for no reason, teenagers just having fun, then it becomes the point where it's not, it's like, I'm here for you guys. And then you're the people that are doing me in. My daughter's on her last year of police. She says she might stay on just because she can, and you get more money if it improves your pension. But I don't know how many days I said to myself, I hope I don't get that phone call. I hope I don't get the knock at the door that says, sorry to tell you this. I see two police officers there, and I know what they're going to tell me. I've done ride-alongs with my daughter on Friday, Saturday night when she was a patrol officer in some of the worst areas of town. Holy God. I mean, it was something else. It was, you've seen cops, you've seen what we were doing. I mean, it was insane. I went on a ride. She was involved in chases. One time there was a chase. We were flying through town. There were lights everywhere. She was going, I don't know, 90, 100 miles an hour through an area which was like 40. Anyway, they caught the guy crashed his car. She pulls over. She says, don't get out. She runs across this highway, jumps over the median, and they're all chasing this dude. And later on, we're having a cup of coffee at 7-Eleven, and one of her mates from the police department says, hey, you riding with her tonight? And I said, yeah, I was. He goes, what'd you think? I said, well, it was, shall I say, exhilarating. And he goes, yeah, I won't ride with her. She was one of the leads in all of this. She loves to drive fast. My fear was more that she crashed than she got shot. But it's, when you take on that job, you know what your risks are, but it's like a teacher. You should, as a teacher, should you be shot to death? Should you be shot in the classroom by a 5-year-old like the teacher in Virginia? Kid comes to school with a gun and shoots her because he feels like it. Is that part of teaching? That's just insane. I'm also 48, and somebody asked me today if I got the senior discount. There was a joke about that recently where the person said, they came up to the counter, they're buying some wine or something, and the person said, can I see your ID? And they go, oh yeah, I know, you have to make sure I was over 21. And they're like, no, we want to make sure we're giving you a senior discount. They weren't too happy. They weren't too happy. Hey, take what you can get. If you're not going to date me, why does it matter? Yeah, there you go. Oh, that's very nice of you, Ruby. You must have missed the beginning of this. I will link it again. I want to say this because I'll never watch them again. I don't really like that concept. You say, I don't always agree. I usually do. Again, you don't have to agree. And he has some really interesting crimes he analyzes. Some crimes I've never even looked at. I like more people on YouTube who have some level of professional background, some level of credibility, which he thinks I have none of, because I like different viewpoints. But I also love the fact that he explains where he came to his conclusions. Even if I don't agree with him, he at least explains them. So then you could look at two different viewpoints on that and say, okay, Pat says she came to this conclusion because of A, and he came to this conclusion because of B. Well, that's good. My God, can we have an ability to look at two different viewpoints, especially if people explain it? And then you can decide what you think is more accurate, why you think it's more accurate, and you can learn from that. I never wanted his channel to disappear because there's very few channels on the internet where anybody explains anything with crime scene analysis. It's almost non-existent. It's like, there was another guy, he was from the UK. He was an I think he used to work in Scotland Yard. I like that guy. He started a channel. It was really good. And I said, hey, please keep going. He said he was going to try. And then he just got tired because YouTube's it's hard work. People don't know that. But YouTube, I worked for 4 months with zero income. I worked for the next year and a half making $300 a month. I'm going to say you can't eat on $300 a month. And most people on YouTube never earn a penny. They can be out here for 3 to 5 years and never earn a penny, working their little butts off. I am now thankful that after 3 years, I've reached a point where I actually am earning a living. Mind you, I earn at least half, more than half of what, less than, I earn half of what I used to earn when I wasn't working YouTube. I've taken a cut. The only advantage I have is I don't have a family that I have to raise, and I'm 68. So I know I don't want to retire, and I still have to eat. I don't know why everybody thinks that, oh, you're 60 years old, you don't need to earn a living. Why? Well, did I need to earn money when I was 58? How is it different when I'm 68? I might live to 98, 30 years with no income? No, thank you. But I want more of these channels where they explain things so I can recommend them. I recommend Peter Hyatt's channel for that exact reason. I recommend a few other channels because I think they do a good job, and I want people to have variety. But so no, I don't want you to stop watching his channel. I just want him to stop being an ass, you know. But I don't know if that's possible. I'm here to learn critical thinking skills, not beauty tips. Oh yeah, don't come here for that. My makeup skills and my hair skills are come as you are and keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, I make it simple. I wear these in different colors. It's from Amazon. It's like black, yeah, red, yeah, orange, and I put my hair in a ponytail because I do 5 minutes worth of makeup because that's just enough to keep me from looking like I'm on a slab. So now when I used to do television, I looked really good, but then I had such professional makeup artists. It was like, it was great, but I don't work in television. So I work on YouTube, and I'm happy to be here because I'm able to be freer here. I'm able to say what I want to say and really, really talk, where television was always like, Pat, you got 2 minutes, and then they cut you off. So, but let's not, I say to Ken, let's not eat our own. You may not think my background is as illustrious as yours, but that doesn't make me a bad profiler. Why don't you listen to my profiles and see if you think I have something to offer? There are a couple people out on YouTube I've recommended the channels, and I'm like really impressed with them. And they've never been a profiler or a detective or any of that, and they're good at what they do. When I taught at Excelsior College, I never forgot this. I taught this course. It was on blood spatter. I think it was a forensic, mostly about crime scene stuff and blood spatter pattern. There were 2 people on there. One was a woman who I thought she was a really nice person, and she had high degrees, and I think she was in law and all that stuff. She was a hardworking student, the most illogical woman ever. Nice, great student, but illogical. She couldn't analyze a crime to save her life, and she was working in the field. She was in defense work. The other woman was amazing. She hit it out of the park every bloody time. You know what she was? She was an 18-year-old administrative assistant in an office. I'm like, you need to go into law enforcement because the mind is so logical. And she was there to learn, and she was learning, but she was also using her own innate ability to be logical and putting it together. That's the top kind of people you need. I don't know whatever happened to her, but I would hire her in a heartbeat over somebody with a degree because she was good. And sometimes, there are people who, artists who've never gone to art school. There are chefs the best food, and they've never been to any kind of a cooking school. There's all kinds of people who do things without going the proper hoops. And I'm one of the people that just didn't jump to them because I was already in my mid-30s when I decided I wanted to go there. And I couldn't join a police force or the FBI. I was too old. So I did it my way. She's working on Mark Sanoko. Mark Sanoko. I just got to work on that. Mark Sanoko. I feel so bad that I think I overdid the K's on one of the times I was talking. Oh, Lord. Oh, good. You've been listening to his Maddie podcast. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. And the follow-up one, which he talks with Walters. That's on my last video that I did. when he talks with prosecutor Hans Christian Walters, he just asks him questions, and Walters just falls apart and does a very doesn't do well, shall we say. Very good. He's a great journalist. Oh, that's so frustrating. I love your authenticity. Thank you. I think it's so underrated for a woman to lean on her wisdom, experience, and acumen rather than her looks. For whatever reasons, we have not moved that far forward in the world. Women are still suffering from ageism and from the whole looks thing. And it's a shame, because there are women, and somebody like Barbara Walters, like, oh, look, she worked into her 80s. Well, she was already famous. But you can't get an 80-year-old woman she's not going to get the job because she's already 80. And she might be extremely intelligent and have a lot to say. And yet she doesn't get a chance because she isn't cute anymore. And when you're talking about the media or any of these things, even selling a book, they're like, well, we better keep your face off the book. I'm trying to think. Bobby Caldwell. I don't know if anybody remembers Bobby Caldwell. I just got to pull up his song. Bobby Caldwell sang one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard in my entire life. Does anybody know who Bobby Caldwell is? He sang my favorite song, which I'm blanking on because I have no memory. But okay, he sang "What You Won't Do for Love." The most beautiful song. The song is just mesmerizing. He put that out in 1978. What You Won't Do for Love, and it's just astonishing. One of the top R&B hits, soul hits of 1978. And they wouldn't put his face on the cover of the album because he wasn't black. He was white. And no one knew it. So years later, people go, oh my God, the dude's white? I mean, it's hysterical. I mean, it's absolutely hysterical. So actually, if you go over to YouTube, let me see if I can pull up the one with "What You Won't Do for Love." It's just funny as hell. And this goes to show you what you won't do for love, what you won't do for love. The top comment. Let's see. Oh, are they? Can you hear it? Oh, I'll probably get canned. I gotta stop it. I'll get nailed for stealing music. Anyway, if you go to that one, what's funny about it is the guy says, I feel the top comment is, I feel like if the internet didn't exist, him being white would still be a myth. And it's hysterical because Bobby Caldwell happened to be white, but he sang soul, and he happened to sing with what people consider a black voice. But nobody had a freaking clue. So they wouldn't let him put his face on the cover. So he sold all this. So in every black club around the United States, they were dancing, to that song, thinking it was the best. And they had in their mind a black singer. It wasn't until years later they found out the guy wasn't black. It's hysterical. But that's the problem. So if you're going to go sell a book and you're a certain age, they're like, how are we going to promote this book because you're too old? If we bring you on here, you're going to look old. People aren't going to. They want young. They want 30. They want fresh. They want hip. They want TikTok. You're not going to play. Can't get a publisher, and you can't get a television show. You can't. Unless you're. What was it? The Wendy the nun. She managed to get that one show on art, and she was this older nun. She was in her 80s, I think, and she was like a quirky thing. But unless you're really quirky, they don't want you. They want young, and they're selling. And I can't blame them for that. They want money, and the way they get money is not to have people who are my age having a television show. I will never have another television show. I'm just not popular for that anymore because of my age, and it's because I'm female. On top of it, that's the way life works. And you have to accept that. I mean, there's things that every part of your life has something different in it. And when you're very young, you think you're being ignored. When you're older, you think you're being ignored. You got a very small window of opportunity, but you better jump on it. Oh my goodness. Somebody offered me a seat on the bus. Well, there you go. Oh, I love Judge Judy. Looks fade, but smart as forever. Yep, that's true. And well, sometimes you lose your mind eventually, but I just don't think, it seems inappropriate to attack other people in the field for being male, female, old, young, and to attack them because of whatever weird thing you're going to attack them for. And I think it's just a shame because I want cold cases to be solved. Do you know how I want them to be solved? I want them to be solved by not becoming cold cases because I know the first 48 is that important. I also know the first week, too, the first 6 months, you better get it done because your chances after that is very, very limited. And if you want to solve a crime, you have to have enough people who have the training to solve the crime right away where the evidence still exists. You cannot come back 20 years later and say, there were shoes at the crime. And the guy's like, damn, I gave them away to the Salvation Army 15 years ago. Good luck on that one. So unless there's literally DNA sitting there, your chances of taking that person to court are about nil because you don't have enough, especially in this day and age. This guy acted weird 15 years ago. That's not going to get him convicted. So yes, I believe in solving cases before they become cold. And when they become cold, well, I hope DNA exists. But I would put my efforts not into pretending I can solve cold cases, but into working to get more police officers, more detectives, and more training for the people who are on the front lines. Ken, I hate to say this, but you're past that point of being highly influential unless you educate. And I'm past that point because I also would have to educate. You can't join the police force anymore. You can't work as a detective. Neither can I. So the two of us can be educators, but that we're going to solve cold cases, that's nonsense. The only thing we can do with solving cold cases is to make money off of people. That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. If that's what gets you your TV show or whatever you think is getting you, that's fine. But you're not actually solving cold cases. You're commenting on cold cases or you're educating. And I think stick with the educating because I think you have that ability. And I think I have that ability. So, and I think we can influence the next generation because we are that generation that unfortunately is moving away. So you can either be a teacher at that point or you can be fairly useless and just be out there for yourself. JH says he can also go down the rabbit hole. I don't know. I haven't been familiar with that. Logical and rational. Thank you. Oh, I appreciate that. You're so sweet. Very nice of you. I try not to go down rabbit holes because most of the time, if you have to go down a rabbit hole, you're going down something that makes no sense. There's very few cases where I've been so flummoxed by that they would be explained by some incredibly massively unusual circumstance that you can't. No, most of the time, criminals act in pretty common ways. They're not that bright. They do what they have to do. And the reason they get away with it is they got lucky. They were a complete stranger. There's or something simple where you suspect something, but it's not even true. It's like the Maura Murray case. Oh my God, that rabbit hole that jackass who wrote the book on her and has been pushing that stuff for years. It's not that hard. There's only two things that are going to happen to Maura Murray. Nobody followed Maura Murray up to near Canada. She didn't disappear into Canada and become a new person. She didn't have anybody come after her and pick her up and do things to her. No, she drove by herself. She was in a state of her mind she was upset. She was falling apart. And that's evident in her past behavior. She drove away in a mood, shall we say, got to a certain location and she was drinking. And one of two things happened. She crashed. She walked away from her vehicle. I think she crashed. So it's been a long time since I looked at the case. She walked away and died of somehow just died of exposure or whatever. And they haven't found her body. Or she walked away and somebody gave her a ride and they killed her. Serial killer type thing. One of those two things, but nothing else but that. And that, people, oh my God, this is all these things happen. The family's involved. Get out of here. None of that stuff happened. And so there's this, with the way you make money on YouTube is to create a conspiracy of some sort, something mega weird, so unusual, like the Odinist theory, or Nancy Ng didn't drown because she did something stupid in the lake in Guatemala, but people went after, where they were using her for some ceremony or some such crap, and all kinds of weird stuff. You can sell, you can get 50 videos and make a lot of money by fooling people, but you're not there to actually solve crimes. You're not there to help people. You're there to make money. And I don't mind people making money. I think I want to make money. I have to live. My channel, people say, I have to earn a living. So does he. And a person who's telling crime scene stories, just crime stories, they're sitting on their couch telling a story. If they tell the story well, they deserve to earn a living. They're doing a job. That's fine. It's only when they're grifting, when I think that they're misleading people. That's what I call grifters. I don't like grifters, and I don't like people being misled to believe something that isn't true. In order for them to make money and be a star, as opposed to, okay, you can make money and be a star, but at least don't lie to people. Just don't lie. That's I have a thing about lying. So, that's I appreciate that. Maybe that's not you as far as the channel goes, but you're always respectful about victims and their families, which is important to me. I hope so. Some people say I'm not because I laugh inappropriately and I make jokes, and I do that because I'm talking about the crime in a very clinical way, and I like people to come and have a good time as opposed, and while they're learning, rather than we'll sit here and I'll cry into our handkerchiefs. Does anybody have a handkerchief anymore? I don't even have Kleenex. I use toilet paper, but people see me in different ways, and some people don't like my channel and they don't like me, and that's okay, because not everybody is everybody's cup of tea. And if they don't like my style, they should go someplace else. And that's one of the reasons I want people like Ken Mains to exist, because maybe they don't like my style and can't learn from me because I annoy them, and they'd rather learn from Ken. Well, that should be something available. But the people who find Ken maybe not their style, why can't they come and learn from me? Why does he have to make me somebody he claims is not credible, and nobody should spend more than 15 minutes finding out that I'm a crazy grandmother? Oh my goodness. Patricia Burns. Hi, Patricia. I know you. My nephew's been missing since 2016 because he was working the holiday season in Turkey. Oh, Lord. We can't get investigated. After hundreds of letters from my family. Okay, you have a point down there. I don't know where you went to. I'm going to see if I can find it. You're dealing with another country, which is really... I'm trying to find your other thing, Patricia. Oh, there you are. We managed to get David Wilson and David Swindles to help. Yay. Okay. Let me ask this question. How are they helping? I don't know. I'm not sure how I know where David Wilson sounds familiar, and I don't know why. David Swindles, I've never heard of. How are they helping? And I don't ask this to be rude, but this is the point about cold cases. When you, as a parent or a family member of someone who's gone missing or has been murdered, I mean, you're going to spend 24 hours a day. And this is where I get teary. I do. You're going to spend 24 hours a day trying to find your loved one, trying to find out who hurt your loved one. That's what you're going to do. That's what I would do. I would be beating down doors. I don't know. The stuff I would do to get answers would be phenomenal. I mean, that would be my life. I know that would be my life. My problem is on the other side of it, from the profiling side of it, investigative side of it. My question always is, what are these people actually doing? Now, you're dealing with another country. Turkey is not going to be fun to deal with. I don't know what the situation with your son over there. It's been quite a few years. The question is one of a number of things. One is, did he have any issues before he went? And therefore they're saying, well, he wasn't murdered. Was it that he was doing something that was kind of unsafe? mountain climbing, going some weird region, could have fallen into the river, been drinking something and died, like even in Nashville with the Riley strain. 3, could he have been in an area where he was indeed abducted and murdered, or something happened to him? And the question is, I don't know which one of those 3 it is. And I don't know how their police department works. I don't know what they've told you, because depending on which one of those 3 it is, a lot of times when they figure it's accidental, they figure that it's something else happened and it's not a homicide. They may just say, well, it's unfortunate, but we don't have, again, the funding to chase down every lead in the country to find out. One day, if his body shows up, we'll do something with it. That's the way they'll think. If it's a homicide, are they poor homicide investigators? Why aren't they investigating? I don't know. And my question is to you: who are these 2 people, and what exactly are they doing? Because again, I hope sometimes what I've seen with private investigators, and again, this is not all private investigators, PIs take a case for the best reason. Here's the best reason: they believe they can truly help the family. They either don't charge them anything, they go pro bono, which is incredible because they have a right to get paid for their work. But if they're going to go pro bono, the question is, are they doing it just to get attention in the media? Or are they really doing it because they want to help the family? 2, if they're not going pro bono and they're charging the family, my question is this: are you actually able to analyze this crime well enough to go after the proper avenues? Or don't you care what avenues go where? Because every time you go out and investigate any avenue the family tells you to run down, like, oh my God, I think this guy could have done it. And you run down that avenue and you get paid $50 to $100 an hour, whatever you're charging, and you're making a fortune. I have had people come to me after they paid $20,000 on a PI. And they said, this is what the PI was investigating. And I look at it for one day and I go, that's nonsense. That's not who did it. The guy's been just sucking money out of you for God knows how long. He didn't do it. The guy he's looking at didn't do it. It was everything points here. And eventually, one of the cases, I said it's a neighbor of your loved one who killed her. And sure enough, the police eventually arrested the neighbor of the loved one. But they lost $20,000 to some PI they actually gave information to that PI. Oh, you should check this. You should check that. And they're so excited that the PI will follow their lead. I, on the other hand, will say, no, I'm not going to look at that. And they'll get all mad at me. Oh, Pat, why won't you look at what I'm asking you to? Because I know it's not true. And I'm not going to waste my time or cost you money. So the question is, do you have a PI who is ethical? Why are they doing this? What are they charging you? What are they actually doing is the question. Now, if I don't know what they're doing. They're talking about another country. What power do they have to influence the Turkish authorities to do something? That's my question. Are they doing this for attention? I don't know. I mean, if they're doing it to really, truly help you and they have some avenue, some diplomatic avenue, that's cool. I just don't know what they're doing. So I'm going to look to see if you tell me what they're doing, because I'm really curious about it. I don't know who David Wilson and David Swindles are. I'm going to see if you comment it, because this is really curious to me. I'm trying to see if I say Patricia's thing anywhere, because I just, here we go. Okay, Patricia, I don't see your comment on who these guys are and what they're doing for you. And I think it's a great example, because I want to know if they're doing the right thing by you, or they're just saying they're doing stuff and they're not. And this is what I see happening an awful lot. People saying, oh, I'm working on your case and I'm going to do all this stuff. And they know they can't accomplish what they say they're going to do. But they're going to make a book out of it, or they're going to make a show out of it, or they're going to make whatever they're out of it. And they can't really do what they say. And that bothers me, because I think it's dishonest. And I just don't know. I can't find anything. I still can't find where you're saying to me what they're doing, these two. Still looking for you, Patricia. And if anybody can really, truly help you, I mean, I'm totally for that. But my question is, what are they doing? Man, I don't see your answer here. So if I get to your answer, I'll comment on that. my trajectory into profiling was just a trajectory, and Ken's trajectory was another trajectory. He worked as a police officer, probably did what I said was the DTY thing. He was brought on to doing investigations, not as a patrol officer, but he was still acting as a detective, but didn't have the label so much. But that's the thing that happens in police departments. I don't have any problem with what he did. I would have loved to have gone through a more traditional route. But what do you do when you find out what you want to do when you're 35? You can't join the police department. You can't join the FBI. You're too old, and it doesn't happen. So I knew that was a gone deal. And when I went to look to get I wanted to go into study criminal profiling. There wasn't even a program in existence then. That's why mine was the first one in the country. It didn't exist. That's why I started studying myself. I'm like, oh, I'm going to find it anyplace else. I might as well do what I can do. And somehow that makes me a fraud. I think the fraud is the I think the fraud is the commentary on that. Bailey Sarian. Okay, if you're going to watch for makeup tips, now there's a weird thing that happens these days on YouTube, and I don't understand. TikTok too. You have average people telling you, they're not, okay, let me put it this way. They're not necessarily not average. They're there for some reason. I have a favorite who I watch for, she is a young woman who has ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. And I have a family member who also has ALS. And so I'm watching her as she has a TikTok channel. She's really good. She does makeup a lot during the shows. And so do a lot of other people. They're talking about whatever they're talking about, and they're doing their makeup. They're usually in their 30s. And I'm like, but you're not even that good at makeup. I mean, what's the point? Now, Bailey, oh my God, she's an expert in makeup. She obviously does stage makeup and that kind of thing. And she starts out looking all plain, and she does this very, very incredible makeup. Like, she's finished a show. You've heard a story about murder, and her makeup lesson is fantastic. I have to give her credit. That's clever. She's very clever. And she's telling stories. She doesn't give an analysis. She tells a story. She does makeup. It's a twofer. I really can't say anything bad against her for that reason. But yeah, my makeup skills are so pitiful. You don't come here for that. Oh my goodness. 2 minutes. I'm making up. Oh, I do. I have such freedom now. It's great. Again, I'm not defending myself. That's not the point. I'm clarifying, and I clarify for a reason. I mean, I'm not all like butthurt. Like, thank God Ken said bad things about me. People are going to think, no. I've been around for a few decades. I have had so much hate. I have had so many people say I'm a fraud. I mean, there was even a channel, PatBrownIsAFraud.com. I've seen it all. My point is, I want people to understand how things work and what is important and what is not important. And when you conflate things and you misinterpret things, or somebody comes out and says things just because I don't know what your issue is, Ken. I really do not. If you have the gall to put on a psychopathic murderer and listen to him like this as he's profiling crimes, and have your audience believing this guy is a competent profiler. My God. And yet I'm not a competent profiler? Really? Do I have to murder somebody and get on death row before you think I'm competent? Or maybe all my experience working cases and education and everything else might be useful. But we have so few people out here to educate. Stop killing educators, Ken. Stop doing it. It's unbelievable. I don't teach makeup. I don't tell stories. And you say, oh, those guy, people who never worked a day except for, they're analyzing crimes, and they've only ever worked at a convenience store in their lives. Well, there's some truth to that, but that's not me. So don't make people think that I have nothing to offer because you are butthurt over the fact that I say that most cold cases can't be solved except by DNA, and we should be honest about that and do more training. I have a difference of opinion on that. It wasn't anti Ken Maines. Anyway, oh, by the way, in case for all of you, this is for me too, and for Ken. Let's say we start going into some, diatribe. We all do that, and you're like, okay, I'm getting bored, Pat. That's not what I'm here for. You take your finger and you put it on the little circle there, and you go, and you move it up to where we start talking about the stuff you want to talk about. Just skip it. That's the easiest way to do it. Just move it forward. The linguistic analysis, Peter does very strongly on the linguistic analysis. There's a new guy out there, and he's from the UK, and now I forgot his new name now. He's been doing linguistic analysis. If somebody remembers his name, put it out there. I have only listened to a couple of his things. I am not as big on linguistic analysis as far as statement analysis goes. I don't go into the depth and the different little things. I look for red flags in people's statements. So I do it a little differently. And so again, we have different things to offer. So somebody can listen to me and say, oh my God, Pat really nails those red flag things. They can listen to Peter and see a whole different, maybe stuff that's useful. So again, we don't all have the exact same abilities. And it's nice when we have experts who are more thorough in certain fields than others. That's a good point. True crime channels have poisoned the well. Emotions, drama, no training, exploitation under disguise. The problem is opportunity exists in any field. You can have a restaurant open up and say, oh my God, the food's the best ever. And you eat there and you go, my God, the chef can't cook. But if they can put up enough advertising and convince people will go there and they'll flock there and think they're eating good food when they're eating garbage. There's books that, does anybody have the Amazon? I have Amazon Prime, and you can get the free books every month. I have not found one book that free book has ever been anything decent. The worst books ever. And I don't understand it. I'm like, I have a book called Only the Truth, a very popular book, has done extremely well. It is, let's see if I can find my copy. Oh, here it is. Okay. This is my book, Only the Truth. It's a novel. It's a short novel. It's more of a novella. It's more of a John Steinbeck style without quite that great talent. But people love that book. And it's one of my second highest selling book of all time. Actually, it might be my highest selling book. It's $2.99. It's on Amazon and and also Smashwords, I believe. It's a psychological mystery, and people love it. I've gotten mostly good comments on it. It's like, what's this great story? It's just a very good story. And I'm like, why the heck didn't Amazon free days give me some? Why didn't they pick my book? Why are they picking this book? Every time I try to read the stupid things, I'm like, oh my God, this is awful. So, but they're coming from, I don't know why they picked them, but I literally haven't run across one good one yet. I'm like, who's picking this stuff? But they're raving about it. And then because somebody raves about it, they believe it's good. So opportunity, if you have the opportunity, you have the in, you have whatever it is. People take advantages of opportunities. We all do. And some people are highly successful, being very, very talented. And some people are highly successful being highly untalented. Go figure. Whatever reasons, they suddenly became very popular. I have seen some storytellers of crime who I've recommended because they're good storytellers. And I just recommended last week the 15-minute video. I was doing the Easy Street Murders, and I have in my link a guy who did, an Australian guy who did, I think it's called Strange Australia or something. And he did a 15-minute video, and I thought he did a great job putting together a 15-minute video of the facts. Nicely, he had a good voice, nicely done. I recommended him. But and he has like, I don't know, how many views, maybe 600 views, something terrible. He's got like 1,000 subscribers, and he gave up like 2 years ago. But then I saw this other girl doing the same stuff, and she's sitting on her bed, and she's not showing any pictures. She's just sitting on her bed. She's telling the story, and she's got like 500,000 views. And I'm like, what the heck? And she wasn't very good. She didn't have a good voice. She didn't tell she had misinformation. She had 500,000 views. I'm like, and as a profiler who does lots of research and has expertise from years, let me tell you, when I see my 5,000 views on a video and I see her 500,000 views, it makes me a little unhappy. But that's opportunity. And she has found a niche, which if the people out there want what she sells, it is not illegal for her to sell what people want, even if the product isn't very good. People want to buy that product, they do. And that's the way the world works. So, unless, and that she's not a grifter. I can't call her a grifter. She's telling a story. She's not very good at it, but for whatever reason, she's making a crap load of money. She probably can afford a house in the Bahamas, and I can't. But she's not a grifter. She's just doing what happens to be popular among some people. Whatever reasons. I won't recommend her, but on the other hand, I can't say that she's doing anything wrong. She just is successful for whatever reasons. Again, I don't listen to the haters. Stop worrying about me. People always worry about me. Oh my God, Pat. No, I don't have that much of an ego. I'm happy with who I am. I'm happy with what I've been able to accomplish. I know who I am, and I know where I lack and where I'm not the best, blah, blah, blah. And I know most haters hate me. It's not because they're being legitimate about what they say. It's because they just are nasty little trolls. And it tells more about them than it tells about me. And so, no, don't, please stop worrying about me. I'm okay. But I do want to explain things. When I see what he did, which was wrong, I 100% think, Ken, that what you said was unacceptable. To call anybody a crazy grandmother, crazy lady, and just trash me like that was just not necessary. For what reason? But again, that doesn't make what he does, as generally speaking on his channel, not something worth listening to. And you could say, well, I don't want to give him my money. I don't want to give him my time. So a lot of it depends on whether you think he has something worthwhile to offer you. As I say, Brent Turvey's book, I will recommend that forever. And we are not friends, but it's a good book. Michael Jackson, great artist. I'm not leaving my son with him, or my grandchild. You know what I mean? There are people out there who are brilliant at what they do. Doesn't necessarily mean I want to be BFFs with them. So that's all. Okay, thank you. David Swindles was a top Scottish cop who caught Peter Tobin and David Wilson. I know David Wilson. Sorry. Yeah, he does. I've studied his stuff, by the way, as a professor of criminology. Yes, they have an interesting, he has a different approach to criminology and criminal profiling. I'm not overly, I like aspects of it. I don't like all of it, but he does some good stuff. And they have started an organization to investigate Brits murdered abroad. Okay. What do they do with that organization? Again, organizations are out there, but do they accomplish what they say they're going to accomplish? And if they can, this is fabulous. But what influence do they have is my question. How are they managing that? There are Americans also murdered abroad. That's sometimes a problem. Then there's Natalie Holloway, who was killed. She was killed in Aruba. What influence did the American FBI or anybody have over that case? And let me tell you, obviously zero, because Joran van der Sloot got away with it. And then, luckily he's in prison now for the second murder. But There's you're dealing with different countries. When you go to a different country, their police department is the one who's in charge. And sometimes, yes, they will welcome a foreign agency in, but they don't have to. Just like will if a Turkish person is murdered in Britain, will the UK say, hey, come on over, send over your team? Probably not, because it's their case. They won't even let me in on a case. They won't let Ken in on a case. He was all pissed off about that. They won't even let him look at something. Why? Because it's not his case. Because the department that has its case is the one that handles that case. And although we might like to think that's not so, it is so. The local police departments don't even like the FBI. They don't want the FBI in on their case. And when you watch the stupid Criminal Minds show, which is about the dumbest thing I've ever seen, you get, oh, look, the police department has a serial killer that kills every Monday. Oh, sure. And at least X's on their head. And so they jump in their private jet and fly to location, and the police go, oh, thank you for coming. That's Hollywood. That never happens. That police work on that case. And the only time the FBI usually get involved in the case at all is they might be used for their technical abilities, CODIS, certain forensic stuff. Profilers, you think they're in on these cases? No, they're not. Maybe 5, 6, 10 years later, like the Long Island serial killer and stuff like that, BTK, they'll finally, because of all the bad publicity, allow the FBI to come in and do their profiling, which is never made public, except later they write a book and claim they solved things they didn't. And it's not the way people think it works. So the question I have is, you're looking at crimes overseas. How are they doing something with it? Is this a great idea, but it isn't really feasible? And see, I say I'm a realist. I mean, what effect are they going to have on the Turkish police system? I quite don't frankly understand what they're going to do. Is it something that makes it it's an interesting exercise for them? And this is what bothers me. A lot of times they make families think they can do something when it's really more of just something for them to be involved in. I would like to know what the hell they think they're going to do. I don't understand what it would be. So, if they have a methodology, I'd like to know what it is, because if there is one, I want to promote it. I do like David Wilson. I don't know the other guy. David Wilson's done some really great research type of things. He has methodologies. I don't know how successful they are in reality. One of the things you never see is an accounting. If I asked you this question right now, how many cold cases, since FBI is not on fresh cases, how many cold cases have FBI profilers solved? Feel free to put that in your comments. And if you're not here for the live show, feel free to put them in the comments. Tell me what they have solved, the FBI profilers, on cold cases. But people think they've solved things they haven't solved. No, they didn't solve BTK. No, they didn't solve Green River Killer. They didn't catch Ted Bundy. The only thing, there's only one that really, remember they did something actually at the time, and that was the Atlantic child killings. That was the only time that they actually were down there during the more initial part of the when things were happening. That's when I think they should be there, because then they can lend their expertise to what avenues they should go for. And they went for, hey, start looking at the rivers, because the guy's going to dump somebody in a river. I haven't done a video on that case yet. I know people think that the guy who's convicted was not the guy. I have to go back and review that entire case. But that's the one that sticks in my mind that the FBI was actually involved in when it was happening. But please feel free to let me know what all the FBI profiling in the world, what cold cases did they solve? And same thing. I mean, how many? And you mentioned one with David Wilson. That was Peter Tobin. Wasn't that Peter Tobin? And I'll have to look and see how he solved that. And if I find out how he solved it, I will put in the pinned comment. I'm looking it up right now because I remember that case, but I'm vague about it, to tell you the truth. So It was Peter Tobin. Scottish convicted serial killer and sex offender. You're saying that David Wilson had he made the difference in convicting this guy or finding this guy? Criminologist David Wilson says there's a blah, 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 blah. Peter Tobin was already serving a life sentence, so he's already in prison. Okay. Deathbed confession. The Lost British Serial Killer by David Wilson. I'm going to look up the Peter Tobin case and see whether, now I'm not saying David Wilson doesn't have good stuff. He does. I've studied his stuff. But I'm just pointing out again, does his stuff work years later? I mean, you can go talk to a convicted serial killer and you can get him maybe to confess something when he's on deathbed. That doesn't solve a crime. Well, it closes a crime. But it's not like you were able to get the guy off the street so he wouldn't kill other people and that kind of thing. So my point about criminal profiling is, when is it used properly? And how is it used? For me, a lot of the criminal profiling stuff by the FBI where the get in the mind of a killer and all that freaking nonsense, I don't agree with. I believe in crime scene analysis. Look at the crime scene stuff and tell you, what does that tell you, pointing to what avenue you should look at? Is there information there that tells you should go this way and look at this guy because of exact things you see? In the Anderson Cotta case, when I looked at that, I said, look, the woman's car was stolen and the clutch was destroyed. And the location she was in, Anderson Cotta case, you can look up my Anderson Cotta case. She was murdered in her condo, and it was a condo that wasn't some condo that was right in the front where you'd know where it was. I said, it seems to me the guy had to know the condo existed to even go there. So I said, I believe he'd been to the condo. B, he took his vehicle, he destroyed the clutch. And I said, he can't drive. His team seems to me he can't drive a stick shift, and therefore where the car is found is where he was trying to go. He's not on a joyride. You can't take it. It's not fun to drive a stick when you can't drive a stick. I'm a stick. I drive stick. So, but it's not fun if you can, so you're not going to go on a joyride putting on your music and you're going to go where you got to go. I said, wherever that car was found, he's got somebody there. He went home. And so I said, asked the guy, the son of the woman, I said, can you tell me if anybody was on the property who'd been in her condo in the weeks prior? And he came up with yes, this guy who worked for this company. I called the company and I said, look, this guy that was on her property, can he drive a stick shift and where does he live? They told me he can't drive a stick shift. He can never drive their vehicles because they are standard. And he always, has to be in the passenger seat. And it turned out his mother lived 4 blocks from where the car was left. That's criminal profiling. That's crime scene analysis. That was some information that could go straight to the police if I'd been there originally and say, hey, this guy is probably the guy who did it. Turned out he was a serial killer, and it was him. But that whole story gets completely insane. You won't believe, if you look at my videos on that, how insane that was. That police department was really questionable. But that's where if I were there in the beginning, I would have pushed them right in that direction right away, and they might have caught him with the information they needed. Instead, 20 years went by. And that information did go to them, but they ignored it as much as possible. He did, quote, confess to it years later. But that's a very, very complicated story, which the police department is going to get sued, and so is the prosecutor. But anyway, that's criminal profiling. 20 years later, I could have analyzed that crime 20 years later and said the same thing, but they're not going to catch him because it's too late. So saying he's a guy who lives with his mother, how do you know that from the crime scene? You don't. You're just making that stuff up. So I don't like bad profiling. I like profiling that tells something from the crime scene evidence, and you can support it with the crime scene evidence. You can say, this is what tells me this. If you look at the crime scene and say he lives with his mother, well, what the hell do you see at the crime scene that says he lives with his mother? One time, John Douglas, FBI profiler, said, the guy's a stutter. I'm like, what the hell do you get from a crime scene? The guy's got a stutter. He says, oh, it's because he attacked the woman from behind. He couldn't function in normal life, and therefore he has a stutter. I'm like, you know how many serial killers attack people from behind, and all of them speak perfectly fine? You know how he knew that? Because he had inside information. They were looking at a guy already who had a stutter. And he basically threw that in, and then it made him look like he was brilliant. This is the nonsense stuff that goes on. Crime scene analysis, criminal profiling should be about finding useful information based on evidence that can forward the investigation, and nothing more than that. And so that's why I stand by, and all this other fanciful psychic-y type stuff I don't approve of. And I'm going to say, once you tell me this is what you came up with, how does that help the investigation? If it doesn't help the investigation, what's the point? What's the point? You know, I'm a little passionate about that issue. I have done Kyron Harmon. Yes, I have done that already. Correct. So go check that out. Put Profiler Pat Brown in the search engine at YouTube and Kyron Harmon. Done that one. Oh, the behavior panel. I got issues with them. I find a lot of stuff kind of nonsensical. Sometimes I see something that is more. I find myself like, okay, that makes sense. A lot of times I just see a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, not my favorite group. Oh, that one. I just commented on that. Yeah, because she had like I forgot how many. I think she had like 250,000 subscribers or something crazy. All going, oh, she's so brilliant and all that. She gave horoscopes. She was a psychic. She was into kind of weird stuff. And she said, oh my God, the eclipse is meaningful and it's going to be, I don't know, the end of the world kind of thing. And people are like, oh, she's so brilliant. And then she stabbed her partner to death and threw 2 kids into the highway, and the baby died and the older girl lived. Crazy stuff. I mean, and she had all these people following her. And I'm like, why are you following this woman? She's a nutter. It's like, she's very pretty. She was very pretty, but I'm a honey badger. I love that whole thing about the honey badger. It's so funny. Oh my God. But it's a frustrating thing when you see. I'm very passionate about how to use criminal profiling, crime scene analysis, because I don't want to see it used as some kind of magic trick. I think that's just sad. And when you put out a profile and the FBI never shows its profiles, which is why they're rarely proven wrong. They made the mistake of going public with I think it was a Baton Rouge serial killer. And they said he was a white guy who couldn't get along with women. It turned out to be a black guy who got along great with women and gave barbecues to the community. So they were like completely wrong. I think it was one of the rare times that, and again, where did you come up with the guy was white? Where did your race come through? How did you, every single thing, if you're a profiler or an analyst, every single thing you say, tell me where you got it from the evidence. It's okay that you come up with it. You might come up with race for a reason, not just obviously if there's somebody hair left at the scene, you'll say, okay, that's Caucasian hair, that's African-American hair, blah, blah, blah. Got that. You got a witness who says that guy looks like he's from Pakistan. Well, then he probably is from Pakistan if the guy was the witness was a Pakistani, you know what I mean? So that's fine. Otherwise, why are you saying that? And there are times when you can say that. When I said that the Andrea Sincata killer was likely African-American, when their son was telling me, oh, I think he's Hispanic because there are a lot of Hispanics in the neighborhood, I said, well, no, because the car ended up where it ended up. And I went to the area of town and I talked to everybody there and I tried to find out who's over here. Like 100% African-American part town. And I said, do you think white guy's coming over here? Hispanic guy, Asian guy, what? And they're like, hell no. I had a great bunch of people in town. They're like, no. And so the reason I determined that he was probably black was because of where the car ended up. And this was a 100%. This wasn't a mixed neighborhood. If it had been 50-50, like Caucasian, black, who the hell would know what the color of that dude was? You don't kill people because they're within your race. That's an old myth. I mean, basically, you don't care as long as they're available. And it turned out that the guy worked for that company, happened to be black, and he lived in that neighborhood. So, but I based it on evidence. That's what I based it on. And so if I'm going to say the guy's white or black, I better come up with a reason for it. And when I said to that California group, I think the guy you want to look in there, maybe the Indian community, was because I didn't understand, because of the way they entered the house specifically to go to that, to find what they knew was in the safe. I said, you want to check that because they know gold's in the safe. That's not something that's going to be known outside the community. So I'm going to say likely the guy is South Asian. Now, I'm not saying 100% he is, but I'm saying the evidence points me that way. So maybe I want to look that way. And indeed, it turned out to be. That's exactly who it was. But base everything on evidence and not some kind of psychic-y thing. I've worked as a criminal profiler a long time. I can get in the mind of the killers, and I'm going like this, and I can tell the guy is lonely. Well, you cannot. You cannot tell that. The Long Island serial killer. What do we know about the Long Island serial killer before they found, the guy that they got now? Did they say he was a married guy with a married guy? Probably they didn't realize that. Could they tell from the scenes he was a married guy? No. Only the fact that if he could take the bodies back to his location and spend time with them, he had a place he could do that. And that's unlikely that he was some kind of guy who's renting a room someplace, because he can't get away with it in the rental room. So probably had his own property. That's from the evidence. So stick with evidence. That's what I, and once you do that, that's what's important to me. And that's why I never had a thing against Ken, because he usually did talk about the evidence. And so, yeah. Well, he might be right. But, calling somebody crazy, that in itself, what does he mean by crazy? Doesn't like my personality? Okay. Thinks I make silly jokes, doesn't like the way I laugh. What makes me crazy? Is he actually saying that I have some kind of psychological disturbance? I mean, that's just a rude thing just to chuck out there. You're supposed to be a detective. You're supposed to be basing things on evidence. What evidence do you have that I'm crazy? Except that it's a nice slur to say crazy grandma, because it insults my intelligence and my abilities, and it insults my age and my gender. So chuck it all in together, crazy grandma. And that's you should do better than that. I mean, you should do better. It's a cheap shot. It is a cheap shot, and it's pointless. And yeah, if he wants to bring up one of my profiles and he wants to go through it point by point and say what you disagree with, I don't object to that. And people can look at that and say, "Wow, he's got some good points." Maybe I'll look at that and think he's got good points. I've been wrong before. I can be wrong again. I mean, it's like, again, I'm not the only profiler on the face of the earth that knows what she's doing. I'll link it below, just so it'll be there. I'm again, it's just because you're asking for it, but I already put that in the beginning. It's already in the beginning of the show, so maybe I won't even bother. Just go back to the beginning of the show. I put the clip in. That's all it's necessary. But it's his most recent video. Thank you. I became a patron to learn, and because of the nice little community here. This is a public video today, which is not normal for me. I did this because of what happened here. So I'm doing a few public videos now occasionally, but normally I do just Patreon only videos. That's one hangout a week where people give me all that kind of ideas about things they want me to talk about, news stuff and other stuff. And then I do the case show on the weekends. I just did the Easy Street murders from Australia. Last week I did the Hinterkaifeck murders, which is a historic one in Germany. And coming up next week, I'm going to be doing this weekend. Forgot what I was going to be doing. The Lululemon murders happened in Washington, D.C., actually in Bethesda, Maryland, which I actually profiled when the case happened. I profiled on television, not for the police. And it's a very interesting crime, and what I profiled was interesting as well. So I'm going to do the Lululemon murders this weekend. If you're a patron, you can come to the chat room like here and participate in all of that. Normally, I stick to just patron for those because it's generally speaking more calm than when you open it up to the general public. It just makes it a nice community. And then once I finish a show, about a week later, I make it public. So all of my shows are public. Nothing is hidden. You don't get, I can't see Pap's videos because I have to pay money. No, you can see every video because I want you to be able to see the videos. The only reason I have the patron thing is for $5 a month. People do support me, and we have a nice community for the general. My two shows a week for our chat rooms is very peaceful. We have a little community during the week. People can comment back and forth, and it's nice. So, and it supports the channel. So I'll put the link below. But this is an unusual public one, just because he went public and said what he said. So I wanted to straighten out, especially about the cold case stuff, because he made it sound like I didn't care about cold cases. I didn't care about people who, trying to find out who killed their loved ones and all that stuff. And that's just not true. I'm just a realist. And I put in years of work and spent tons of money, and then came to a realization, this is not working. I still love doing it. I mean, even paying my own money, I loved it. I mean, like I went down to Texas. I flew down to Texas. I stayed down there to work on the Brandy Thompson case. I might do that. I haven't done that show yet. And I worked with the sheriff's department. They were superb. They did a great job. We did not have any issues. Family welcomed me. I got to be in Palestine, Texas, which was a fascinating place. And I loved working on the case, but I paid the plane flight. I paid the hotel. I paid the rental car, and I didn't get paid. And there's only so long you can keep doing that unless you're independently wealthy, which I was not. So, and then what came of that case, even though they were on my side, the sheriff's department agreed with me. And we had a plan, and the prosecutor shot it down. And they came back to me and said that the sheriff said it's all political. So I spent all that money, and still to this day, you'll never see anything about that case out there. The case is still open. It's like I never went and nothing ever happened. Now, I never said I had to take credit for it. All I ever hoped was that if they could solve it, they would say something like this: we're happy to finally solve this case. We want to thank the police. We want to thank all the detectives on the case. We want to thank our forensics people. We'd like to thank criminal profiler Pat Brown. She came in and did some analysis. Put me in the team. Don't make me the star or anything. Just put me in the team somewhere in there, so that when I go work for the next police department, I get some credibility like he seems to want me to have. And that police department will say, yeah, we worked with Pat Brown. She really was helpful. That's all I ever wanted. But, you can spend a ton of money, and when nothing goes to prosecution, it gets very, very depressing and very pointless. And I never charged the families. And I can also say this: I always said to the families, if I can, once I finished with your case, if you'd like to donate to the organization, which I called at that time the Sexual Homicide Exchange, that was back in the day, please do that. And I, honest to God, only ever got like 3 donations. It was unbelievable. And because people don't, if they don't have to donate, they don't. It's kind of the way things work, because by the time I'm gone, they're willing to hire private investigators. They'll pay private investigators, but they don't want to pay a profiler. And I didn't ask for the money. So, but I know it doesn't work. And I said, okay, I have to face reality. Let me do something that works. And that's what I'm doing now. Only I'm hoping to improve that during the next 10 years. Is my purpose is to actually create a much better system. My methodology of looking at cases that will benefit detectives. I'll start that with just online on my channel, because it's available, and then I will work hopefully to then institute it, and maybe to police departments, or maybe I'll just fail and nobody will cooperate, which is not unusual for governmental stuff, and that will be that. And at least I'll have done it on YouTube. Just checking out some more comments before I sign off for tonight. Oh, aren't you nice, Bogey? Oh, my favorite. You're my favorite YouTuber. Oh, you want to be a profiler, okay, and a PI because you inspired me. You have a brilliant mind. Well, hopefully some of the time. If this inspires profilers or private investigators, teaches them, so when they go into the profession, they have a better training before they go in. That's what I'm about. I will be happy that I've accomplished that. And I may never know I accomplished that. It may be one of those things, a teacher who helps a student, and that student says, this person changed my life. Unfortunately, she's dead and I can't tell her that, but she changed my life. If I can do that, then I feel good. And mind you, I want to point this out. I have a good life. if I quit YouTube tomorrow, I have a good life. I have family, I have friends, I have great. I love to do pastel painting. I love going to India. I do sign language. I'm learning Indian Sign Language and Hindi because I want to spend time in India. I got things to do. I cannot do this and have a good life, but I choose to do this to add to being able to do something in life. And I hope that it means something. And I'm also an author, so hopefully my future books will mean something to people. I like to do things that or one more thing that can be done that's useful and good for people. So if I can inspire anybody and help with the training aspect of anybody going into any fields, psychology, criminal profiling, criminal justice system, becoming a detective, PI work, any of this stuff, legal work, pretty cool. I may never know about it, but pretty cool. I'll be okay with that. Let's see any more comments. Serious? No, don't be like that. Don't be like that. I mean, Can Pat read comments? Well, I think I can read comments. I do my best. Thank you, Valley Girl. Again, I don't have a genius brain. I think that I have a logical brain, as logical as it can be. And there are pieces that because of my background and what I know, that's why you need more than one person who understands different cultural things and different stuff in life. Sometimes what I have done is gone to the people in the community and say, tell me what I need to know. I have been to places where I've walked around the community saying, look, I'm trying to solve a crime here. Tell me what I need to know because I don't know what's going on here. I don't understand this. I don't understand that. There's things I just don't know. And because I've never experienced them. So we can only be, quote, genius about things we have understanding of and then apply logic. And that's basically it. I still can't hardly do my taxes. It makes me whimper, and my taxes aren't all that hard. And I will do everything I can to avoid them, including waiting 6 months and paying the extra money because I can't make myself go through the torture of putting those numbers together. I just hate it. I hate it. So, I ain't no genius over there. I agree with this. Miss Tammy. Statement analysis is far superior to body language. I'm not overly fond of body language too much. And I'm also not overly fond sometimes of overdoing what each single word means. It's kind of like sometimes dream analysis. Yesterday I dreamt of eating an apple. What does that mean? That means you're Eve and you have sexual issues. Maybe you're just hungry to eat an apple. Maybe an apple's just an apple. So you have to be very careful about not overdoing things. You have to know what your baseline is, what people talk like before they do their statements. And are their statements really that odd, or are they really that odd? So you have to be careful on all of these things to make sure that you aren't exaggerating something. Let's see. Oh, interesting. Bugliosi's 3-hour video against O.J. Simpson. Well, he's on the right side. Yeah, it is. It is a live, a public live, which I don't usually do, but I might do them like once a month only on certain things that really bug me, and that I really want a wider live audience too. And this really did bug me. He apparently I bugged him by saying that, doing cold cases is worthless, and that's what made him think I'm a useless human being. And then somebody sent that information to me, and then that set me off. Well, this is the whole point. Unsolved no more. He doesn't solve all the cases. He doesn't, as far as I know, I don't know what he actually solved. And now I'm not saying he's not right about his analysis. This is a completely different thing. When I wrote The Profiler, I had people attack me saying, but these are unsolved cases at the time. And there was actually a couple cases in this book which have been solved since. And they'll say, well, it didn't match what you said, so you're wrong. Okay. First of all, I can do my analysis and come to a conclusion. The case is solved by evidence, and that's what makes it go to prosecution. So did I solve it? Maybe. Yes, but it's not prosecutable. Now there was a case in there, and I think they went after the wrong guy. And I don't think there's one shred of evidence to prove the guy they said did it. And I think he was a fall guy. But that doesn't make me look good. I mean, my evidence still stands. My analysis still stands, and it doesn't point to that guy. And they have come up with no evidence I think is credible that points to some guy. So sometimes you can look bad because that somebody is prosecuted, but not necessarily the person who should have been prosecuted. This does happen. That's what I say about the Superbikes case in South Carolina. Todd Kohlhepp he confessed to that case. He did not commit that crime. I stand by that. And I can prove it with all the evidence. I have the evidence, but no one will allow me to present the evidence outside of, I presented it on my blogs, I presented it on YouTube. But even the networks I worked with, it's like, we're not going there. They were happy with their little story. They didn't care. When I even sent them the autopsy results, it said the guy did not shoot anybody in the head. He is lying, and he made that up. And the police agreed to let him say that when it wasn't true. And the police knew as well he didn't know that. So Sheriff Wright is corrupt, and I will stand by that. And I'm usually very positive toward police, and I support most police. But every once in a while, you get a bad apple. That dude's a bad apple. He's a liar, and he's a crook. And he's corrupt. And I stand by that. And Todd Kohlhepp did not commit the Superbikes murders. He's a serial killer, but he didn't commit those murders. But if somebody comes back and says, see, you were wrong, Pat. No, not necessarily. But it's unless somebody's willing to go back all over my information and see what I'm saying, they may just buy the story that has been given to them. It makes you look bad. And sometimes it's hard to fight when stuff goes on like that. So I do understand there are sometimes corruption and lies going on. And sometimes I get the brunt of them. But I'm not always right. I can also just be freaking wrong. I can say, well, I really thought that guy did it. And wow, who knew? I'm wrong on that one. But so I don't think he has to solve all these cases. But the problem is he's saying he's solving cold cases. And I want to know what cold cases are you solving? When you say that they're unsolved no more, that's not true. It's a great title, but it's not true. What cases have you that are unsolved no more? Because if it didn't go to prosecution, we can't even prove you solved it any more than I can prove I solved my cases. I gave an analysis. I believe it fits. I believe I've identified the top suspect. You may think I've identified the top suspect, but can you prove it? And again, in the comments, if you know what Ken Mains has solved, put in the case that he has solved that has nothing to do with DNA. And if he has a heart for working on these cases, I don't object to that. I object to him saying that I'm wrong to say that the majority of cold cases, if not almost all of them, are not solved by anything but DNA. And that cold case squads in the police department, they focus on finding stuff with leftover stuff that they can get through DNA. Otherwise, they can't probably take it to court. They know that. And people from the outside, every one of these little organizations that keeps telling families, oh, we're going to help you, we're going to help you. Most of the time, they cannot really help them because it goes back to the police department and what evidence they have. And it's a harsh truth. But if we want to change things, we don't change things by perpetuating a big lie. It may benefit you, but it doesn't benefit solving cold cases. So I won't perpetuate that lie. I will perpetuate what I see as the truth. And what the truth is we need more police. We need better training. We need things done when they can be solved, which is in the first 48, at least the first weeks or months, and not 8 years later and hope that the DNA falls into our hands, or for whatever reasons, somebody dug up a garden at the house they just bought, and lo and behold, they found the body of the previous owner's wife, and now they can go back and charge him with murder because she's buried underneath the patio, which is great. They caught him, but that has nothing to do with any brilliance on the part of these groups or profilers, outside detectives who aren't actually detectives at this point in their life. So let's just not tell lies. I mean, anyway. So this day just really got me going. Really got me going. Well, there's a lot of truth, and a lot of statements here. I'm going to zip down to the bottom since I've been here for a really long time. I was on a soapbox today. Just drives me nuts. Oh, you think that's it? My channel is growing? He's trying to bait you into an argument. Well, I already did. Well, I'm better than that? Well, apparently not. No, I don't think he was even baiting me into an argument. I think he really just wants to make sure people think that I'm, not someone that they should pay any attention to, that they shouldn't waste their time on my channel. That's what he's saying. He's saying 15 minutes listening to her, you just don't waste your time on her channel. She's not credible. I don't know they ever thought I'd respond. I wasn't planning to respond, but the thing that bothered me was the thing about the cold cases. It wasn't so much the fact he called me a crazy grandma. I would have just laughed that off. But the cold case thing, because when I started looking at that again, I see so much of this across the internet, and I see these at the Crime Con, and I see different groups of people pushing all this stuff where they go. They're very kind to families of murder victims, but they just seem to be playing a game with them where they're telling them, oh, we're here for you. We're going to keep the name out there. We're going to solve the case, blah, blah, blah. I saw a guy the other day on the Rachel Morin case. He's a geographic profiler. I haven't seen his geographic profiling. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it at all. I mean, I'm thinking maybe he's a good guy to listen to. But he said two things on his Twitter that bugged me. One is, Rachel Morin was brutally murdered in a sexual homicide in Bel Air, Maryland. I did a profile for that case because this was something I thought I could help with. Brand new case. They had DNA from the guy, but they didn't know who the guy was. So the family called me and said, could you help? And I did a profile. The profile was intended to go out to the community, and it said what police never tell people that they should. The guy's a psychopath. Here's how a psychopath behaves. He would have been he had been in this area. This is how he does things. He would have been, and I explained all the things you might about the guy, the specific things that you could say, well, that sounds like my cousin Jose, because the guy's Hispanic. So I'm going to use Jose. But anyway, Juan. Okay. Guillermo, whatever. He's supposedly Hispanic. So someone in the Hispanic community or non-Hispanic community may work with or have this guy's a family member, but not recognize that he's a psychopath and not realize that if you put together his psychopathic behaviors, if you knew what they were, and his logistics that day, that he was in that area and he hung in that area. If you knew these things, you might be able to say, hey, that's my cousin Guillermo. And you call the police and say, hey, Guillermo's acting weird, and Guillermo was like burying a knife in the backyard. Okay. And then they took that English profile and they translated it into Spanish, and they put that out in the whole community of Bel Air. And I don't know if they did it in LA where the guy was also seen, but I hope so. Now, I wanted to give a useful tool, and that's what I did. Now, the geographic profiler has recently appeared, and he has said that he has done a geographic profile of how this guy might have done movements. That's cool. Then he said two things. It just bugged me. And I'm not saying anything bad about his work. He said the guy's life is caving in. Why? Why do you make a statement like that? You have zero proof the guy's life is caving in. He's been in LA and he's been in Maryland. He's got DNA matching both. Both cases are over a year old now. That guy could be sitting down in, Guadalajara, Mexico, drinking tequila with his buds, having a good time. Hombres, en sus hombres. Anyway, my bad Spanish. And he's having a great time. And he's not worried a bit. Why do you say his life is caving in? How do you know that? He may not be worried. He's gotten away with it. He might be perfectly fine. Secondly, he says, we're going to catch this guy. Stop saying that. We have no idea if we're going to catch that guy. Stop giving, this is false hope to me. You can give people hope. We're trying to help you. We're working. We're putting out a profile. The police have done this. The DNA is being checked. Maybe this new geographic profile has something to add. We're doing things to help. But we are not promising you we're going to catch the guy. That's stupid to say that. We have no idea. There's not a million. There's lots and lots of serial killers out there who were never caught for 30 years. That first police chief said, we're going to catch you. We're on to you. We'll have you within the month. And 30 years later, the guy's on his deathbed. They finally figure out it's him, and he's killed 20 more women. Stop saying things that aren't true. Why do we do that? I don't know. I don't like false statements. We do not know if the guy's life is caving in. We do not know that we're going to catch him. I wish we had already caught him. He's obviously a serial killer. He's dangerous as hell. But he's not in CODIS. He's not been caught for any other crime. He's just out there. Now, is he in the US and just not committing more crimes, and so they don't know who the heck he is? Will one day somebody recognize him and say, hey, think that guy was in Bel Air, Maryland. He used to go to high school there. And he went to high school there, and then he moved out to LA, and then he came back. Maybe it's him. He's always been a lying dog. Hey, maybe that's the guy. And his name will be turned into the police. Or maybe the guy is just someplace else. They say he's Hispanic. So what? Where does that mean he is? If he's in the United States, he could be in any city. If he's not in the United States, he could be in the Dominican Republic. He could be in Mexico. He could be in El Salvador. He could be in Honduras. Pick a country. He could be any place. His life is not necessarily caving in, and we don't necessarily know that we're going to catch him. Stop saying that. Just say, well, the police often say to the family, we're working on it, because that's about all they can say. And sometimes they're not really working on it. But I just don't like lies. I don't like people saying things that aren't true. And I think if we don't say things that aren't true, we can focus on what we can do and what is rational, and not go down a bunch of rabbit holes or a bunch of fake avenues of things we can do when we can't do them. I don't like that. And bugs me. Can everyone get along? Somebody was at the drama thing. I need to assign moderators. I don't usually do public lives for this reason. So Pat is the only one spewing hate. Okay, so then when you get a guy like that, you just go, let's see, ban user and delete comments. Okay, somebody thinks I'm spewing hate. How am I spewing hate? Okay. Maryland, not Los Angeles. What? Oh, Pat D. Sorry, you're talking to somebody else about, okay. I try not to get into politics here. I avoid that. Oh, aren't you nice? Me and my wife watch it all the time. Thank you. Again, I should have Clarissa. I should have somebody as moderator. I didn't get anybody for moderator because I did this at the last moment. So, so I apologize for that. That's why I have patron only lives for the most part. But please block Robert. I forgot which one Robert is. Is that the one I just blocked? Is that somebody saying mean things about me? I don't see Robert anymore. I must have gotten rid of him. Yeah. When you don't have a moderator, it's true. Even moderators can't sometimes moderate everybody. It's just, that's why it turns into a free for all. But this just was one of those things, got to me, and I wanted to explain it to a wider group of people. So that's what I've done. I blocked him. Okay. And he has a viewpoint. And I always point out Patrick Swayze, who in Roadhouse said, opinions vary. And he has a right to have an opinion about me. And people do. So does he. But I just think that we're, as people who are on YouTube, he's a YouTuber. and I'm a YouTuber. I may be a profiler, and he may be a retired detective of some sort, because retired police officer, and also he's an investigator / detective for district attorney. I don't know what, he, when he called himself detective, Ken Mains, he's not a detective now. So, I mean, but he can give himself that title if he likes. He'll say, I don't have any right to the title of profiler, because there's really no rules on that. There really aren't. So what can I say? There aren't. And I don't think some people say, well, you have to be in the FBI to get the title of profiler. And I disagree with that. And there's just no rules. So yeah, so maybe we're even on that one. But I wish we would, understand that we are on YouTube. And yes, there's a lot of YouTubers who I do think are grifters and are stuff I don't like out there. But there are so few of us who will actually analyze crime and serve as a teaching. I find it unfortunate that he thinks that when he brought the psychopathic murderer from death row on as a profiler, that he thought that was okay, but I don't have a right to be here and nobody should listen to me. That's just really? But again, I'm not lying about cold cases. And if that turns you off just because I spoke the truth about handling of cold cases and what we can do about them, if that really bugged you to the point where you had to diss me to the extent you did, maybe I'm telling the truth and you don't want to recognize it. And so again, in the comments, if you know FBI profilers who have solved a cold case crime through criminal profiling and not DNA, put it in the thing below. I might do a whole nother show on all of what you tell me if I can find the truth of that. Put anything Ken Mains has solved outside of the police department as a freelance guy, because he's not attached to any agency. So he's basically at this point a YouTuber. If he solved crimes that you know of, that he's actually come to a conclusion where that thing has been prosecuted, let me know, because I will retract my statement that I believe that almost all cold cases are solved by DNA, unless some deathbed confession or somebody digs up somebody in a garden. But almost none of them are solved by people from the outside, like myself, like him, like anybody with an organization like VIDOC. I just don't think it works, because we must train the police, the detectives who are working the case when it shows up, when it is fresh, when evidence still exists. So that's how you help. I have no problem with Ken Mains doing his job when he was a police officer, helping solve cases. And I wish I was there in the beginning to help solve cases. And I wish any profiler was embedded in the department to help solve cases. And I wish every detective had training to help solve cases right up front. But don't come back and tell me that so many cases are being solved by all this other nonsense 10, 20 years later. That's just not true. We can use those cases to analyze and train, but it is not going to get those cases prosecuted. And that's just, I will stand by that. But if I'm wrong, put all the cases in the comments. I will check those comments. And if you don't think I saw your comment, email me at profilerpatbrown@gmail.com and say, Pat, this is a case that he has solved by this. This is a case the FBI profilers have solved by this, that VIDOC has solved by this. And I will put them all together and I will come back and I will discuss that. So there you go. Anyway, those are my thoughts. But yeah, it set me off because, yeah, I like truth, and that just bothers me when I don't hear it. Anyway, that's it. If you're new to the channel and you've made it all the way through all of this, because it's been a really long show. Wasn't a plan. That's 3.5 hours now. So, hey, I don't know if you came in or whatever, or here from the beginning, but I thank you for being here. Please do subscribe to the channel and check my playlist if you want to learn something, because I'm not solving cases, but go to all my cases that I've looked at, especially ones you're very interested in, and look how I analyze evidence. And if that's what you're wanting to learn, even if you're not going into any kind of detective work or whatever, but you're just interested in the process of solving a puzzle, please do check my playlists out and go to the search engine in YouTube and put in Profiler Pat Brown and anything you're interested in. No matter what case it is. There's a famous old case. I've done Charles Lindbergh baby. I've done, and I've done recent cases. So and I've done international cases. I've done cases out of Mexico and Germany and the UK. I just did the whole one on the Vanishing Triangle in Ireland. So done a lot of stuff. And I hope people learn from that. So again, thank you for being here. And anyway, Jordan Brown. Jordan Brown. I think I looked at Jordan Brown already. The one who killed his stepmother, who they say didn't kill his stepmother. Yeah. There's nobody else that was ever in the area. So I'm going to say is likely was guilty as charged. But I haven't really done a whole thing on him yet. So I might do a whole thing, or I think I might have talked about him in the Hangout, but I'm not exactly sure. Hard to remember. I've done a lot of cases. So anyway, thank you again. I'm going to go make myself dinner. My goodness. Thank you for being here. And again, one last thing before I go. I don't have a problem with you watching Ken's channel. And I just hope Ken one day realizes that other people have the right to have channels too. And they do have experience and background, even if it's not the same as yours. Bye-bye, everybody.